Joe Biden reveals his cancer diagnosis with thoughts that this could have gone all the way back to previous to Barack Obama's term in office where he was the vice president. Guys, there has been a lot of speculation about this. We're going to go over some of the speculation, some of the conspiracy theories that went along with this, and, well, what's actually going on here. But I'm going to come right out and say what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to insult Joe Biden. Being mean is easy. We're not doing easy here. You know who's mean? The people who are going to talk about it when Trump gets cancer, which he may inevitably do. We're not going to be like that, but we are going to talk about everything that's going on here, some of the things that are being said, some of the things that are being done, and where we go with that, and where it relates, by the way, to the Robert Hur interview. So, a lot of stuff going on with that. That's going to take up a good chunk of the first hour this morning. But, in other news, the big, beautiful bill may be coming out of the House yet today. It actually might leave the House while we're on air here, so we'll talk a bit about what's going on with that. Some of the issues that I have with this, including the size and the amount of spending that is actually in this, because, you know what, why don't we just go spend our futures into oblivion? But we'll talk about that, what's happening there, and where we go with that. 8647, that's right. The four numbers that launched 1,000 tweets. We're going to go over what all of that means, where it goes from there, what people are talking about, and the fact that Mr. Comey got a visit from the Secret Service. So we'll go over that and what's happening there. And out of nowhere, a Mexican naval training ship just randomly runs into the Brooklyn Bridge. They're blaming the U.S. I have no idea why, but they are. So we'll talk about that and what's going on with that and where we go with that, of course. It is going to be all of this and more over here on Contemporary. So, strap yourselves in. Find some friends. Get your breakfast, get your morning coffee on, and fill that live chatter with what you think about what's going on with this. And I do ask, and I did over on X, if you are going to be mean, if you want to talk about Biden, and I get it because it's frustrating. He was kind of a jackass. Do it over on Rumble because I'm sure that the YouTube live chats are looking for that kind of stuff, and we're kind of small, so it's going to be easy for the YouTube censors to go back and read. But it's going to be all of this and more over here on the other side of the break. So again, grab your coffee. You don't have to worry about covering the kids' ears because I try to take care to be nice about my language while I'm on air here, but we will see you on the other side of the title card, and down by the river on a Friday night, a pyramid of cans in the pale moonlight. Talking about cars, dreaming about women. Never had a plan, just living for the minute. I am J. Edgar, I am not Norm, and this is Contemporary. If you're looking for the song that I'm rocking out to, it's called The Angel Island Zone. It is from Funk Fiction. It's on an album called Sonic and Chill, which, I mean, if you're looking for an online play of it, you're not going to find it. I have looked for an online play of the individual songs on this particular album on YouTube, on Spotify, etc. I have not found them anywhere, but I know that you can do the full, what they call the Sonic and Chill album on YouTube, start to finish, with Angel Island Zone like this one. Oil Ocean Zone is probably one of my favorite ones. And actually, there's a, quote, most played marker on the YouTube channel for the album for Oil Ocean Zone, because it's pretty popular. If you like that one, you're not alone, because it seems that a lot of people do seem to like that one. So, yeah. Go and check that out. As always, go and check out the Game Chops channel for Video Game Study Lounge and Radio Cutman as well. I cannot, for obvious reasons, use Radio Cutman because of copyright concerns. I do actually have to go back and see. There's been an offer to use certain music from the Radio Cutman library for some of my intro and outro, and once I get the Stream Deck set up, that's going to be one of the things that I do, is go back and reset all that. So we actually have an opening title theme, an closing title theme that's already up at the push of a button, ready to go. One of the things that I want to do for that, so I don't know how exactly that's all going to work as I go. I know we want to go back and do sounders and everything else, but I mean, the format of the show is going to change once I get this all set up. It really is. I do hope to still have some background music going on over the background here. I don't know how I'm going to work that with the deck, because I got to play around with the thing and figure out how it all works. I'm fairly excited for that, but that is some behind the scenes stuff for right now. Hi, good morning. My name is Jay Edgar. This is Contemporary, and we have got a pretty hefty show today. I was looking over it. I actually put in a little bit of product placement, which I don't do normally because, well, the companies don't pay me. The PepsiCo company did not pay me, but really the only thing that I didn't have anything on things that I like at the end of the show today. And then I looked at the bottle of, well, you'll find out at the end of the show what I have over here. So that's going to be my product placements, because, guys, we can't end on 14 tabs of things that I hate. We just can't do that. That's not a thing that can happen. I've learned to be positive. I want to finish off on a positive and send you out for the morning. So that's what we got to do for that. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about Joe Biden. We'll be talking about the Robert Hur interview, because, well, that was pretty big news, and conveniently timed that we got the cancer diagnosis right after all that dropped. Did anybody else notice that we just suddenly stopped talking about the Robert Hur interview as soon as we find out that he's got cancer, and oh, hey, maybe that explains why he was so demented, or he was going to do this, or he was doing that, and then yeah, I've been watching X, and there's been just a lot of that. So, as I asked at the beginning of the show, first off, if you are driving on your morning commute, do not text and drive, please, because, well, I want you to come back here week after week. I want you to be safe. I love you all, and I want you to be here in my audience. But if you do want to comment on Joe Biden and you want to talk about, I have to space out my words a little bit here, because we're trying to make sure that we don't tip the YouTube censors for glorification or anything else like that. So this would be more of a quote on this end. But if you want to talk about deserving it, or if you want to talk about had it coming, or hope something bad happens to him, do it on Rumble, please. Please. YouTube has very, very strict censors for that kind of thing. That's why I rang that around. I can throw the Rumble link up in the main chat, actually. I'm probably not going to read it on air. I might get a little bit of a chuckle out of it while we're going. But like I said in the opening credits, we're not going to do mean. Mean is not something that we do. You know who's mean? I'll throw the news scene up here. Let me get a picture of this one. Images. No. Oh, hold on. I want to do a specific image for this. Open, not link. I don't want link. I want image. Open image in a new tab. There you go. You know who's mean? This guy. That's who does mean. This guy right here. We're not going to do that. I love how they came back and edited and tried to make this not look like a blood red background. While this guy is sitting here screaming about the source of all of your problems are all those MAGA people out there. Boy, that sounded like some very, very familiar historical speeches as we want. Anyway, we're going to get into the news of the day, so strap yourselves in and, well, let's try to have a little bit of fun this morning. Let's try to do this. Quest Fanning has shared this over on X, and I gave him a little bit of the retweet off of this, so hopefully we'll get a few people in here, and like I said, let's have some fun. Let's do it, huh? Alright, let's get started. We're going to start with some celebrity news, of course. Because while our former president is still alive, we do have a few people who were influential to even me, even though I was very, very young at the time. Right here in front of us, starting with our friends over at NPR. And make sure you hit the donate button because while we are talking about celebrity culture at this point, we do have to make sure that NPR can come back and tell you how to feel about politics. And they cannot do that if they run out of money, and they might run out of money if you don't hit that donate button because, you know, they're only 10% government funded and that advertising budget doesn't carry them anymore. So hit that donate button, otherwise you might think wrong and might think in a right-wing fashion. That would be terrible. It would be terrible if the people who sit there on the microphone and talk like this can't tell you about politics. But with no politics right now, let's talk about George Wendt, who played Norm on Cheers, who has passed away. Mandalit DeBarco reporting on this story. Fans of the classic TV sitcom Cheers are raising a beer stein for one of its beloved cast members, actor George Wendt. He played Norm Peterson, a beer-loving regular at the bar, where everyone knows your name. Norm! Wendt's publicist, Melissa Nathan, shared the statement from his family, who confirmed on Tuesday that the 76-year-old actor died peacefully in his sleep at home. George was a doting family man, a well-loved friend, and a confidant to all those lucky enough to have known him, his family wrote. He will be missed forever. I can see him possibly being missed forever. He's never going to grace those doors again. Wendt was born on the south side of Chicago and got his start in the 70s performing with prestigious improv comedy troupe The Second City. After that, he began appearing in bit parts on iconic TV shows including Taxi and MASH. Smush! On SNL in '91, he appeared as a Chicago Bears superfan named Bob Swirsky. Duh, Bears! Still suck. He also played the irritated dad of Macaulay Culkin's character in Michael Jackson's 1991 Black or White music video. I just watched that the other day because that was making the rounds as well. Apparently, people saw Tyra Banks going nuts in the video for the first time, or at least the first time in almost 40 years, and decided they wanted to say something about it. Wendt also appeared in the movies including Dreamscape, 1984, House, 1985, Fletch, 1985, and Spice World, 1997. Fun fact, I've only heard of one of those movies. You can sit and speculate amongst yourselves in the live chat, again, as long as you're not driving, over which one that is. But the role he was most known for was as Norm, who was in every episode of the NBC show Cheers, which ran from 82 to 93. I guess I didn't realize the show was older than me. I knew that it ran into my very, very young childhood, but I didn't realize it was older than me. As the lovable barfly, Wendt earned 6 consecutive Primetime Emmy nominations for supporting actor in a comedy series. He went on to reprise the role in the show spin-offs The Tortellis, 87, never heard of that one, and Frasier. I have heard of that one. I've watched that one recently actually, and I've seen the episode where Norm was on recently. Wendt also starred in The George Wendt Show, a short-lived sitcom in which he played a car mechanic and radio host. Among Wendt's survivors are his wife, actress Bernadette Burkett, and his 3 kids, his nephew actor, Jason Sudeikis. Also, I've not heard of this person, so I know, I'm not big on movies and really losing on TV shows as well at this point. Spend a lot more time outdoors, or playing video games, than I do watching TV, movies, etc., so... Now, as far as I go, I mean, realistically, I attempted to take my parents to Cheers when we were out in the city of Boston when they came out to see me for graduation. Couldn't find it. Still have no idea. As much as I never ever want to go back there, which I don't, there's like 1, maybe 2 people that live out there still that I wouldn't mind seeing again in my life, but for the most part, I really don't ever want to go back there. Maybe 3. 3. I think there's a good 3. I do want to take them back there to fulfill the enjoyment of seeing something that, I mean, that was a big part of their life. My parents were sitcom people. They enjoyed them and the familiarity of all that, so I remember seeing Cheers as a young child. I just didn't really know what was going on. Because, you know, it ran from 2 years before I was born until I was 9. But I know it brought a lot of joy to people. I've seen some episodes of it, again, more into Frasier than anything, because, you know, that was more where I was coming into adulthood, so I know that. But yeah, we probably spent a good 40 minutes in that area looking for that. Who's modding today? Who needs to go? Who can come back and let Embroider Lifespan F34FS? I think that person needs a timeout. Who's modding today? Anybody? Anybody? But Norm, he is gone. Just a little brief anecdote about Norm, because I just don't want to end on the fact that, oh, he's gone. Cheers star George Wendt scored an iconic role with a one-word audition. Ted Danson, Kelsey Grammer, and other Cheers co-stars remember Wendt, who played fan favorite Norm Peterson from Stephanie Jane Ponant, which, by the way, he did a bit part in everybody else's following shows, too. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that he did a bit part on NCIS to star across from Ted Danson. Was that NCIS or was that CSI? I don't remember. I've never actually sat and watched the one that he was on. It's where everyone knew his name. Wendt was best known for his role as Norm Peterson in Cheers, died Tuesday. But in one of his last interviews before his death, he shared his one-word audition, sparked into him landing his iconic role. In August, Wendt reunited with Danson and Woody Harrelson for their podcast, SiriusXM's Where Everyone Knows Your Name. Because, I mean, we've got to have a podcast about every TV show that ever lived. Apparently. I've listened to a little bit of the step-by-step one. During their conversation, he looked back on how he nearly missed out on the role that would define his career, all because of a scheduling conflict. My agent called and said, you know, honey, they want you to do this Cheers, now you're not available, because I had this other show, Making the Grade, at Paramount for CBS. Wendt remembered at the time. Then they go, but they want you to come in anyway. It's really small, though. I go, okay. The really small role was originally just one line for the pilot episode of Cheers. Wendt recalled asking his agent how small, to which he replied, well, it's really just one line, actually. It's just one word. Come to think of it, one syllable. Wendt was asked to walk into the bar and say beer to Shelley Long's character, Diane Chambers. Although the audition was just one syllable, it would eventually echo through sitcom history. After the initial read, the team behind Cheers realized Went had something more to offer. They expanded the role and gave him a second shot as he auditioned for another character altogether. I read it, Went said, and they decided they were going to try to make it work out where I could do both shows, and then the other show got canceled. So, yeah, his one-word audition. Beer? That'd be cool. I don't know. It's weird hearing some of the audition stories that some of these actors have out there. Like, I know that the doctor in Voyager, the holographic doctor, he was auditioning initially Robert Picardo for Neelix. But he did improv because they wanted him to go read for the doctor too. And he read his lines regularly, including the point about getting turned off on his way out because of the fact that he was a hologram. He was confined to the medical bay because of the technology they had at the start of the show, which they expanded as they went. But, you go read your lines, you talk about everything else, and then in the end, just walk away and say, I'm a doctor, not a light switch. And that gets you the role. So, Godspeed, George Wendt. So, this next one, you may have noticed from the opening song lyrics. This is not a celebrity death, but this is a retirement. Also from Fox News, Alan Jackson retires from touring after 30 years on the road, from Tracy Wright. Alan Jackson had a good time on the road for more than 3 decades of his life. The country music legend is hanging up his cowboy hat for good and performed his final tour show in Milwaukee on Saturday. Which is surprising because I thought he would end in his home state, which I guess I don't know what that is. I thought he's from Georgia, though, so. You would think that somebody who is famous for singing about the Chattahoochee River would finish out everything in Georgia, but I guess not. Jackson, 66, announced last year he would be retiring from the stage as he battled major health issues and embarked on his last call, one more for the road tour. Y'all may have heard that I'm kind of winding down. In fact, this is my last road show of my career, Jackson told the crowd in a video shared online. Y'all gonna make me tear up out here. I will say this is my last road show, but we're planning to do one big finale show in Nashville next summer sometime. Okay, and again, that makes more sense than just ending it suddenly in Milwaukee. I felt like I had to end it where it all started, and that's in Nashville, Tennessee, but this is the last one on the road for me. The Chattahoochee singer added, "It's been a long, sweet ride. It started 40 years ago this September. My wife and I drove to Nashville with an old U-Haul trailer and chased this dream. It's been a crazy ride. I lived the American dream for sure. So blessed." Jackson's representatives did not immediately respond to Fox News Digital's request for comment. Jackson kicked off the tour just 1 year after revealing his battle with Charcot-Marie tooth disease, a degenerative nerve condition that affects his motor skills. He was diagnosed in 2011, so he's been holding on to that for a while. "I had this neuropathy, neurological disease," Jackson said during a Today Show interview at the time. "It's genetic that I inherited from my daddy. There's no cure for it, but it's been affecting me for years and it's getting more obvious." The Livin' on Love musician said he's been self-conscious on stage because it's affected his ability to balance, especially in front of a crowd and in front of the microphone. "I know I'm stumbling around the stage now. I'm having a little trouble balancing. Even in front of the microphone, I just feel very uncomfortable." So, another great iconic musical voice especially, so sorry to see him go. I know that this is another person who's probably affected a lot of us a lot of my audience has probably been affected by listening to Alan Jackson's music throughout their lives. So, and this one I think is actually for good. I know that George Strait announced in, what the hell was it, the first time? 04, 05, maybe 06. He was done touring, and then he went and did like 7 more tours after that. But I do think that, yeah, Alan is probably going to be done at this point. Great career. Absolutely great singer. I stopped being into modern country around the turn of the 2000s, but every time that Alan Jackson threw out a song, I still actually sat and enjoyed it, so good on him. Absolutely. All right, let's do some market news. The Dow took a major tumble in the middle of the day yesterday, going down below its previous close as we went. It has popped open at this point, so we'll give a refresh and see where it's going. But yeah, it was floating along steady, and then about 2 p.m., boom, down, done. And then took a little bit more fall, ending at 41,860.44. Let's get a refresh and see where we're sitting at now. Arbolt says the Eagles' final tour lasted how many years? Let's see. What year did the Hotel California acoustic mix come out? Because they've been doing the final tour since that. And that was in like 1996. And they're still doing it, by the way. So it looks like on today's markets, everything spiked back up and then dropped back down. So we might see a bit of a roller coaster here today. So let's grab from... We can't do Wall Street Journal because that's a paywall one. I do have one open from last night from Yahoo Business. So let's grab that one. Stock market today, Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures slide after House gives green light to Trump's tax bill. U.S. stock futures struggled for the headway on Thursday as investors assessed the House's narrow vote to approve the big, beautiful tax bill and what it means for the growing U.S. debt pile. It's funny because those same investors don't really give a damn about the U.S. debt pile. When somebody like Joe Biden or Barack Obama or Bill Clinton adds to the U.S. debt, and yes, I understand that there was a brief moment where Bill Clinton reversed the U.S. debt counter, but they don't care about it when he does it, but when Trump does it, let's go sell everything off. This is not any sort of endorsement for Trump spending, by the way. And we will be getting into that when we talk about the Big Beautiful Bill. I have a lot to say about the Big Beautiful Bill. Dow futures edged roughly down 0.6%, coming off an almost 2% drop for the blue chip on Wednesday. The S&P were down 0.5%, while contracts on the tech-heavy NASDAQ slumped around 0.4%. The House passed Trump's giant tax and spending package by a single vote after a last-gasp version aimed at winning over conservative Republican holdouts. Changes included a more generous deduction for salt taxes, paved the way for the bill moving a step closer to becoming a law. Wall Street is worried that the legislation could add trillions to the existing $36 trillion deficit. Again, where were you 3 years ago? I'm with you on this. I am with you, investors. They are spending absolutely too much money in D.C. But 3 years ago, when the Infrastructure Act passed, then, oh, this is a great time to go buy. Actually, that may be a good point that Quest Fanning brought up on this one, because when they do things for when it's Democrats that are doing it, I lost my train of thought there for a second. When Democrats sit back and do it, it's tax and spend. When Republicans do it, it's spend and spend, while they sit back and try to cut taxes. So yeah, that could actually be a part of the reason why there's a big difference there. Bond yields in high focus after a Monday Moody's downgrade shine a spotlight on the U.S. debt continued a steady march higher. The benchmark 10-year rose above 4.6%, while the 30-year rose above 5.1%, putting it within striking distance of highs seen during the financial crisis. Meanwhile, Bitcoin continued to set fresh record highs, topping 111,000 for the first time as the leading cryptocurrency rose over 3% to 111,878. Ethereum made gains amid a growing institutional demand. I wonder where my Bitcoin balance actually is right now. I know I don't have a lot of it. I noticed that my Shiba Inu is going up a lot, though. So, and all my Doge is not in Coinbase, so I don't even know where that is. I might have to go and have a look at that at some point. But there's your finance for the day. I do have a little bit more finance here before we take off, with Memorial Day weekend coming up. From NBC Palm Springs, Memorial Day gas prices to hit. Oh, and tariffs elsewhere. Somebody's talking. Somebody's talking. It scared me. Memorial Day gas prices to hit lowest levels since 2021, analysts say. Well, just tell me how low they're going to go so I can go and fill up my pickup. As Americans gear up for Memorial Day weekend, they'll find welcome relief at the pump, according to fuel tracking site GasBuddy. This year's holiday travel will come the lowest gas prices for Memorial Day since 2021. And when adjusted for inflation and wages, the cheapest since 2003, excluding the pandemic years. Patrick DeHaan, head of petroleum analysis at GasBuddy, says the national average is expected to be $3.08, about 50 cents lower than it was at this time last year. It's going to be the cheapest Memorial Day since 21, DeHaan said. But if you adjust for inflation and rising wages, Americans are actually going to spend at least the least amount filling up this Memorial Day since 2003. Gas prices have dropped in step with falling U.S. oil prices, which are down nearly 20% since mid-January. I don't have any idea where you're seeing any of that right now. Gas prices in western Wisconsin are actually pacing pretty well on par with where they were when I moved, which was right before Inauguration Day, because we have these wild up and down swings. The lowest I've seen is 279. The highest I've seen is 319, and it's just down, up, down, up, down, up. It's crazy. I've never seen it go like that. Typically, this is the time of year when we'd see higher gas prices, Diaz noted, but we're still paying less because of those lower crude oil prices. However, the drop in gas prices also reflects a more uncertain economic outlook. DeHaan points to factors like inflation, tariff concerns, and slowing consumer demand as reasons for the recent pullback in oil markets. As goes the economy, so go gas prices, he said. Right now, with the threat of tariffs and economic uncertainty, oil prices have faltered. DeHaan warns that while low gas prices are usually a boost for consumers, recent dips in consumer confidence and ongoing layoffs could temper travel and spending this summer. It's like 99 in Palm Springs right now, by the way. According to that, it's still dark out, but it's 99 degrees at 10:30 in the morning. So hopefully you fill up even if you're not traveling. And that's what we have for that. I guess let's go right into the title card for this morning. Yoga! From the Associated Press, Biden has been diagnosed with aggressive prostate cancer. Alright, I know I promised plain language. Cover your kids' ears for a second. I'll give you a second. Biden has ass cancer. That's the only mean we're going to do today. You know who's... We're not going to do mean because mean is easy. Mean is cheap. You know who's mean? This guy. Allergies are kicking my ass today. Excuse my language. From Josh Boak. Former President Biden has been diagnosed with prostate cancer, his office said on Sunday. The finding came after the 82-year-old reported urinary symptoms, which led doctors to discover a nodule on his prostate. He's been diagnosed with prostate cancer on Friday, with cancer cells having spread to the bone. Guys, it doesn't just go straight to the bone. We're going to hear the news media tell you that this was all new, nobody saw this coming, anything else. Especially with the slate of health tests that you get as the president. Everybody knew. They knew he had this. I promise you. While this represents a more aggressive form of the disease, the cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for effective management, his office said. The president and his family are reviewing treatment options with his physicians. I doubt that also. In a post on X on Monday morning, Biden posted a photo of himself with Jill and wrote, cancer touches all of us, man. Like I touch little kids. Jill and I have learned that we're the strongest in the broken places, man. Thank you for lifting us up with love and support. Prostate cancers are graded for aggressiveness using what's known as a Gleason score. The scores range from 6 to 10, with 8, 9, and 10 prostate cancers behaving more aggressively. Biden's office said his score was a 9, suggesting his cancer is among the most aggressive. When prostate cancer spreads to other parts of the body, it often spreads to the bones. Metastasized cancer is much harder to treat than localized cancer because it can be hard for drugs to reach all the tumors and completely root out the disease. However, when prostate cancers need hormones to grow, as in Biden's case, they can be susceptible to treatment that deprives the tumors of the hormones. He's 82 years old. What hormones does he have left? Outcomes have improved in recent decades, and patients can expect to live with metastatic prostate cancer for 4 or 5 years, said Matthew Smith of Massachusetts General Brigham Cancer Center. Yeah, okay, people my age can probably expect to live 4 or 5 years. And I don't know the difference between prostate and like metastasized ovarian cancer would be a good one. I have an aunt. Well, I had. I know that she beat the odds on that one. They gave her 3 years to live. My aunt had ovarian cancer when she was very young. I believe it was while she was in her 20s even. That young. Hysterectomy, cut everything out. But they didn't get all of it, and in her late 40s, it would have been, I think, into her 50s. They found the metastasized cells on her lungs, and it was to the stage 4 point already at that point. And they said 3 years, she got 6. I hate to tell you this, Arvold, I think it was before that. It's very treatable but not curable, Smith said. Most men in the situation would be treated with drugs that would not be advised to have either surgery or radiation therapy. Many political leaders sent Biden their wishes for his recovery. I can't wish Biden a recovery because I don't think he's going to recover. I know that they've got all the CIA super drugs that they kept him pumped up on whenever he had to give a speech, but I'm going to be a realist about this. I don't wish him a recovery because I don't think it's going to happen. I do wish that he has a comfortable rest of his life. I wish him the best on these next probably 6 months because I don't think he's got more than that. Which honestly would fit in a lot with, and I'll put my tinfoil hat on. I will put mine on and match with Arvold at this. I think a lot of this is fulfilling the intent that they had for the guy. What did I say from the beginning of the Biden presidency when everybody else jumped out of the race and coalesced around Biden? And I said, they're trying to get him into office so he has executive privilege for the rest of his life. Now, I thought, of course, that meant that he would pass away in office and pass the torch to Kamala at the time. But here we are. End of the presidency, out into the real world. And suddenly now he's got this cancer, which, at his age, as frail as he is probably going to take him by the end of the year. So he essentially lived the rest of his life with executive immunity. And he'll never have to answer anything about Burisma ever again. That's my tinfoil hat on it. Alright. President Trump, a longtime political opponent, posted on social media that he was saddened by the news and, "We wish Joe a fast and successful recovery." Biden's Vice President Harris said on social media she was keeping him in her family's hearts and prayers during this time. Joe is a fighter, and I know he'll face the challenge with the same strength, resilience, and optimism that have always defined his life and his leadership, Harris wrote. Former President Barack Obama said his thoughts and prayers were with Biden and his former vice president, laughing at his toughness. "Well, you see, nobody's done more to find breakthrough treatments for cancer in all its forms than Joe. And I'm certain you'll fight this challenge with a trademark resolve and grace," Obama wrote on social media. Which, by the way, is an interesting post speech coming from Obama, because, well, the focal point in that particular tweet wasn't me! The health of Biden was dominant concern among voters during his time as president. After a calamitous debate performance in June while seeking re-election, Biden abandoned his bid for a second term. Harris became the nominee, thus avoiding the primary process, and lost to Trump, a Republican return to the White House after a 4-year hiatus. But in recent days, Biden rejected concerns about his age despite reporting in the new book, Original Sin by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, that AIDS had shielded the public from the extent of his decline while serving as president. We'll be talking about that later on as well. So, look, there is no way, if it's gotten to his bones, with the rigorous physicals that the president goes through, that they didn't know that this was a thing. There are speculations, we'll talk about this in an X later, that he was going home on Delaware all these times, every single time he went to Delaware, for chemo, or radiation, or cancer treatment. And again, I do wish him comfort in the last little bit of his life. He is not going to be with us for very much longer. And I hope he's well in that last little bit. I do. From the Associated Press, Biden's sudden diagnosis of aggressive prostate cancer is unfortunately all too common. From Carla K. Johnson. Where? Where is it common? Let's look at a little bit of this one. Arvold said, "I asked AI the probabilities of Biden's cancer being unknown before 24, and given every possible option, it was only 10%, unless the doctors at the White House didn't check his PSA levels, which would be dumb. They knew." Arvold says, "My tinfoil hat, they found that he had cancer about the time they tapped Kamala for the race. I still think it was before that. I still think it was in like 2014, 2015. They typically stop digital exams at 80. PSA is less accurate. Prostate cancer is a slow-moving cancer. Even with a Gleason score of 9, they should have known long ago. And if it did advance this quickly to stage 4, he's got months, if not days, left." Apparently, Kate had a brain tumor at 7, about 5 years earlier. There was zero likelihood of survival for those youth cancers. But here's the dark side of medicine. They might have not done the PSA or digital because you don't do them on people with less than 10 years to live. Manning says the auto pen disqualifies Biden from immunity. Well, again, like Arvold said, he's got months, if not days, to live. So what are you going to do about it at this point? Throw his corpse in jail? Quest says, if he had radiation and chemo, his leg hairs would no longer turn blonde in the sun. I got hairy legs, man! And the kids would jump on my lap, man! So, yeah. Alright, let's read from here. Biden was having increasing urinary symptoms and was seen last week by doctors who found a prostate nodule. On Friday, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and the cancer cells have spread to the bone, his office said in a statement. It's a very common scenario, Dr. Matthew Smith of Mass General said. Men can feel completely well, and a diagnosis of metastatic prostate cancer could come as quite a surprise. Again, it could come as quite a surprise. Because a lot of men, and I know this is an argument that Palm and I have often, don't just go to the doctor. They don't do it. I try not to do it whenever I can avoid it. But if you're the president and you're getting your yearly deep physical to make sure that you can still execute your duties as president, then that's in a completely different situation than what we're seeing now. Guidelines recommend against prostate cancer screening for men 70 and older, so Biden may not have been getting a regular PSA blood test, Smith said. What's more, while the PSA test can help flag some cancers in some men, it does not do a great job of identifying aggressive prostate cancer, Smith said. When caught early, prostate cancer is highly survivable, but it's the second leading cause of cancer death in men. About 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed over their lifetime with prostate cancer, according to the American Cancer Society. My grandpa beat it. My grandpa beat cancer twice. Stomach and prostate. From the BBC, Biden's cancer diagnosis raises fresh questions about his health in the White House, from Max Matza. Biden's announcement that he's been diagnosed with prostate cancer has revived questions about what health issues the former president was dealing with while he was in the White House. In a statement on Sunday, Biden's office said the 82-year-old had received the diagnosis on Friday after seeing a doctor for urinary symptoms. Some doctors have expressed surprise the aggressive form of cancer, which has spread to his bones, was not detected earlier. Others pointed out that cancers can grow fast without the patient displaying symptoms, that men over 70 are not routinely screened. President Trump, will talk about this a little bit more later, told reporters on Monday his predecessor should have been more transparent with the public, seeming to imply the cancer diag had been covered up, a suggestion rejected by Biden aide. I think it's very sad, actually, and I'm surprised the public wasn't notified a long time ago, Trump said at an event at the White House. It could take years to get to this level of danger. So look, it's a very, very sad situation. So sad. And I feel very badly about it. And I think people should try and find out what happened. A Biden aide said that the former president's prior medical check for prostate cancer was more than a decade ago. He had a prostate-specific antigen test in 2014, the aide told reporters on Tuesday. Prior to Friday, President Biden had never been diagnosed with prostate cancer, the aide added. The cancer diet comes amid reports that the Democrats' aide sought to conceal other deteriorating health conditions from the public ahead of the 2024 election. Republicans argue that Biden, who ran for re-election as the oldest president in history at 81, was mentally and physically unfit for office. He dropped out of the race last summer after a disastrous debate performance against Trump. Which, by the way, could have very, very easily been a post-chemo run or a post-radiation run, because that takes so much out of you. But yeah, I definitely got some questions about that as well. The USA Today telling us that because the 82-year-old was diagnosed with prostate cancer, that means that you at 40 should go get the finger stuck up your butt. Even though I guess they don't do that anymore. From Madeline Mitchell. James and Livonia Waddington heard the news about former President Biden's prostate cancer diagnosis through their 19-year-old daughter. She texted the family group chat after seeing the announcement on social media. Cancer touches us all, like so many of you. Jill and I have learned that we are strongest in the broken places. Thank you for lifting us up with love and support, said Biden, 82, on May 19th. The news hit close to home for Jim Waddington, who was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2020. 4 months after his diag, he said he had surgery to remove the cancer on his prostate, and he hasn't had any issues since. With all the cancers, early detection is key, and if it wasn't for his wife, Waddington said, I'm quite sure the diag would probably not have been caught early. So, she literally made the appointment when I wasn't feeling well, he said, and she sat in the doctor's office with me. So, yes, absolutely, go get screened. Biden's disclosure on cancer tests undercuts doubts on diagnosis. From Gregory Svirnovsky, from Politico. Biden hadn't received a commonly used blood test to check for prostate cancer in more than a decade before his recent diagnosis, the former president's office said on Tuesday, amid questions about health while in the White House. Biden last received prostate-specific antigen tests to screen for prostate cancer in 2014, according to a brief statement. Even some allies have questioned how Biden's doctors failed to spot such a serious condition, even as his annual physicals attracted close scrutiny by the president. Trump seized on the confusion of Monday because, Republicans pounce, telling reporters Biden's cancer should have been flagged earlier than attacking the former president's mental acuity. The U.S. Preventative Services Task Force recommends a man over the age of 70 refrain from routine screening for prostate cancer. The former president was in his early 70s in 2014, in the middle of serving a second term as President Obama's vice president. So, they keep trying to tell us why he wasn't getting checked for this. And again, my understanding is that the president goes through a major physical every year to make sure he can still execute his duties. And yes, possibly in the same way that Quest Fanning brought up earlier. I'm going to move this one around here just a bit. So this one's going to go over here for right now. Let's grab one from NPC. We'll skip that one actually, because Biden's last screening for prostate cancer was in 2014. We know that already. From the Daily Wire, Trump is surprised Biden's cancer wasn't announced earlier. That test is standard. But of course, the last time Trump was in office was also in his mid-70s. Which is about, he started at 69, so yeah, that was actually something that he would have got if they say don't do it after 70. Sorry, my allergies are killing me today. Former President Biden's office announced Sunday that Biden has an aggressive form of prostate cancer. Look, I think it's very sad. I'm surprised the public wasn't notified a long time ago because it got to go to stage 9. That's a long time, Trump told reporters on Monday afternoon. I just had my physical. You saw the results of that particular test, and I think the test is pretty standard to pretty much anybody getting a physical, a good physical, Trump said. Trump added that his physical included cognitive tests, said, anybody running for president should, take a cognitive test. And yeah, I'm shocked by this myself. I really am. And I do think that they know. More should have been caught earlier. Biden urged to reveal disease history after cancer diagnosis. The announcement led to multiple world leaders, including President Trump, to state their support for Biden and his family and wish the former president speedy recovery. We saw that. The editorial board pointed out that while some men do miss the symptoms of prostate cancer, Biden was campaigning for re-election, meaning he would have stayed in office for another 4 years. And again, I don't think he would have made it. There's a long record of presidents who concealed their ailments, from Grover Cleveland's secret cancer surgery to Woodrow Wilson's incapacity after his stroke, leading to the actual first female president. To John F. Kennedy's Addison's disease, the editorial board wrote, Mr. Biden's White House hid the extent of his age-related decline until his June 27, 2024 debate performance made it obvious to voters. I don't think we're ever going to get the full panel of what it is that Biden had. Skip that one. And then, yes, the last X that I wanted to talk about here. All those weekend trips to Delaware were chemo trips. All along, it was right under our noses. And that is entirely possible. I know that there was a long debate over the fact that this couldn't really be possible, and this tweet is completely unfactual in the Discord. If you're not in the Discord, go join the Discord so you can have conversations like this, by the way. And make your opinion known to people who say that they're avid Trump supporters, and then come into my Discord and spew the Liberal Party line everywhere that they go. Is it possible? I think it is possible. Will we ever know? No, we will not. Arnold says, they did the exam. It was the best exam. My prostate is strong. Perfect, they said. That's what the doctor said. It's perfect. It's not huge. Perfect prostate. I could pass all the McDonald's that I eat. No problem. Biden's prostate was huge, not like mine. Mine is perfect. So smooth. So strong. So strong. And then, yes, the Daily Wire that I just moved. Doctors raised question about the timing of the cancer diagnosis. Unbelievable that this was missed. But again, the issue at hand is the fact that this diagnosis came only a couple days after we got the Her interview. Let's read a bit from the Daily Wire, and then we will actually talk about the leaked Her interview. Biden's office announced Sunday the former president had been diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer that had metastasized to his bones. Almost immediately, doctors took to social media to explain the diagnosis and what it meant for Biden. But many physicians were shocked that Biden, who in theory underwent routine high medical care and examinations at the White House, did not have his cancer discovered until it progressed to such a late stage. The timing led some doctors to wonder whether Biden's physicians had missed something, or if an earlier diagnosis had gone unreported. Ronnie Jackson, former White House physician, said, "Unfortunate, I wish the former president the best in his treatment for cancer." Many doctors who raised questions about Biden's diagnosis noted that prostate cancer is commonly detected early with a simple blood test, which, of course, they say hasn't been done since 2014. Dr. Chris George, who serves as the medical director for Northwestern Health Network's cancer program down in Illinois, by the way, told Reuters it was concerning that Biden's cancer had already spread to his bones. What concerns me is the fact that this cancer has been reported to have already spread beyond the prostate to the bones. And when the cancer spread to the bones, it makes it stage 4. And that means the cancer is not curable, George said. There's no treatment available that can cure the cancer. There's definitely treatment available that can control the cancer. George said it was possible that Biden's cancer was simply so aggressive that it had advanced dramatically since Biden's last routine physical, but he said the scenario still raised questions as to whether a PSA screening might have caught the problem sooner. So here's my tinfoil. And again, that's part of the reason that I moved this down to this portion of the stack instead of having it where I initially had it. We found out about the leaked Robert Hur interview portion, which we will listen to in the next slide, on Saturday. We found out about that. And on Monday, now we suddenly hear about a prostate cancer diagnosis that is, like Arvold said, possibly as little as days left to live. I don't think that's coincidental. And I do really honestly believe that they knew. I don't think that there's any way that they didn't. I think it's possible that, yes, he was going to get chemo in Delaware at this point. I don't think we're ever going to know that. But I also noted that as soon as we heard about this, the Robert Hur interview segment just went completely out the window. It's gone. I don't know that I've heard a news story about that since then. It was actually a little bit hard to find stuff for this morning on it. But with that, we'll move on and talk about that portion of the news. We're going to go with Axios to start with, because they have the audio, and we're going to listen to the audio. Meanwhile, I'm going to step up and blow my nose, off camera, of course. From Axios, exclusive prosecutor's audio shows Biden's memory lapses. From Mark Caputo and Alex Thompson. Amid long, uncomfortable pauses, Biden struggled to recall when his son died, when he left office as vice president, what year Trump was elected, or why he had classified documents he shouldn't have had. Per audio, Axios obtained from his October 2023 interviews with Robert Hur. The newly released recordings of Biden having trouble recalling such details while occasionally slurring words and muttering shed light on why his White House refused to release the recordings last year, questions mounted about his mental acuity. And again, the biggest problem that I had with this at the time was the fact of Bobby Hur says, well, he can't go back and face trial for any of this because everyone's going to just see a befuddled old man and they're going to take his side. And he doesn't have the mental acuity to finish this out, but how the hell did he have the mental acuity to still be the president? We're getting two different stories here. But let's listen to this.
So during this time, we were living in Chambers Road, and there were documents related to the Penn Biden Center, or the Biden, or the cancer bone shot, or your book. Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working on?
Well, I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that area?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so it was, and by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period, except the president. They're not a mean thing to say. I mean, he just thought that she had a better shot of winning the presidency than I did. And so I hadn't at this point, even though I'm at Penn, I hadn't walked away from the idea that I might run for office again. So if I ran again, I'd be running for president. And so what was happening though, what month did Bo die? May 30th,
2015.
Was it 2015 he died?
2015.
I think it's 2015.
I'm not sure the months are, but I think that was
Yeah.
That's right, Mr. President.
what's happened in the meantime is that and Trump gets elected in November of 2017? 2016. All right. So, why do I have 2017 here?
That's when you left office, January of 2017.
Okay. But that's when Trump gets sworn in.
Right.
January.
Right. Correct.
Okay. Yeah. And in 2017, Bo had passed, and this is personal. The genesis of the book and the title, Promise Me Dad, was I know you're all close with your sons and daughters, but Bo was like my right arm, and that was my left. These guys were a year and a day apart, and they could finish each other's sentences. And Bo, I used to go home on the train in the period that I was still in the Senate. Anyway, do you remember? There was pressure, not pressure. Bo knew how much I adored him. And
I think Arvold is right. I mean, that is outright painful to listen to. It really is. To see this person struggling, and then again, knowing that this is the person who has his finger over the little red button on this time, too. You know, they sit back and they talk about the mental acuity, and, you know, Trump had a hard time walking down a wet ramp with leather-soled shoes and everything else off of this. And meanwhile, they keep with this out here, which we had the transcript of, and we could see the ums and the ums and everything else, and the trailing off. The transcript has been out here for years, but to hear it, it just puts a fresh fear. Is the best thing that I could describe it as. A fresh fear to you that, you know, these people are so desperate for power that they just keep wheeling this guy out. Shut up, Grandpa. Get back out there. No, we'll have your pudding time after you go and give this speech. Yep, here, take your special magic vitamins and get out there and give your speech. Or the other possibility, and again, I'll throw the tinfoil hat on, is that this is all an act. And this guy was pretending to be this befuddled old man, you know, the same way that W did. Although W wasn't more a befuddled old man, it was more that he was a joyful moron that didn't know any better. Therefore, you all sat back and blamed Dick Cheney for everything. There's so many possibilities with this, and none of them are good. And yet, this whole news story got completely swallowed up by the cancer diagnosis. Let's do one briefly from The Hill. Leaked audio of Her's interview shines light on Biden's mental fitness, what to know, which in The Hill speak is what to think. Here's what you're supposed to think about this. Arvold says this is brutal to listen to. My father-in-law was having mental issues before he passed last year. After the chat for Arvold. Former President Biden has found his way back into the spotlight more than 100 days after Trump reclaimed the White House. Audio obtained by Axios from Biden's 2023 interview with special counsel Robert Hur about classified documents found in his private home from his time as vice president was published by the outlet on Saturday. A shorter clip was released late on Friday. The 5-hour interview came from her first day of questioning and appears to show Biden struggling. While the DOJ released a transcript of the conversation last year, the Biden admin had pushed back on releasing the tape, citing concerns over potential tampering or deepfakes. Or more likely, they didn't want the people to hear that while they were trying to install Kamala into office. He ultimately ruled that Biden willfully kept documents, but suggested the jury would find him a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with poor memory. No charges were filed. And again, it's not that I don't think that that's true, by the way. It's the fact of, if that's all true, why the hell did you let him anywhere near the White House again? Biden, in several points during the interview, had to pause mid-sentence while struggling to find words to say, the audio shows. The tone of the conversation highlighted the former president's difficulty remembering timelines or staying on track. In one instance, he struggled to recall the year his son Beau died from brain cancer. Biden was asked by the special counsel to describe his private residence and where he kept the classified documents. Oh, I don't know. This is 2017, 2018, that area. But quickly diverted into why he didn't run against Trump in 2016, citing former President Obama's enthusiasm for former Secretary of State Clinton. Later he added, I hadn't walked away from the idea that I might run for office again. But if I ran again, I'd be running for president. And so what was happening, though? What month did Beau die? Oh God, May 30th. Two White House aides interjected to remind him it was 2015 when his son died. He then struggled to relay the year that Trump defeated Clinton in the election. And that's what happened in the meantime, is that as Trump gets elected in November of 2017, Biden continued before two staffers quickly corrected him. He had it 2016. All right, so why do I have 2017 here? Quest Fanning is taking off for algebra. Quest Fanning says, my mother-in-law and brother's mother-in-law are both struggling mentally. My mother-in-law with aphasia and my brother's with dementia. My brother's literally can't remember what she went to the bathroom 5 minutes ago. Quest may be back later. We'll see. And yeah, it was hard to listen to. I got a back-to-back pair from the Daily Wire. Yeah, check out the audio platform later. Welcome to the party. Peter Doocy hits back at claims reporters didn't ask about Biden's decline. From Virginia Kruta. I don't know if this is all video or what's going on. Welcome to the party. Doocy hits back at claims reporters didn't ask about Biden's decline. Fox News senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy weighed in on the conversation surrounding Original Sin and the new book from CNN anchor Jake Tapper and Axios reporter Alex Thompson, which digs into the former president's cognitive and physical decline and the links to which the White House went to keep the situation under wraps. Doocy responded specifically to those who were wondering why nobody asked about Biden's condition or whether it was being covered up by his family and his White House. I have some unique insight on President Biden, having dedicated 6 years of my life to covering him, Doocy wrote on X. If you are wondering why nobody asked about his mental fitness and why nobody asked if White House staffers were covering up his decline, then you weren't paying attention. Here are 7 times I did just that, with a thread. Doocy then shared a series of X clips from 23 and 24, which he directly challenged members of the Biden admin. In the first clip, Doocy is seen asking about Biden's ability to handle any situation that might arise, even if it happened past his bedtime. Say that the Pentagon at some point picks up an incoming nuke. It's 11 p.m. Who do you call? The First Lady? He asked. Press Secretary Token Diversity Hire brushed off the question, saying only that Biden had a team of the best people around him to handle emergencies. Let's watch just some of these clips.
We know the president says that his health is fine, but it's just his brain. And that he's sharpest before...
He was joking, by the way. I just want to make sure that that's out there. And people, he was making a lighthearted joke as he was speaking off. He's speaking off the cuff, and he was making a joke. You know the president; he likes to joke a lot. He's the same guy who says, "I know I look 40," right? So he likes to make jokes. It is a joke. I think people laugh when he says it.
Well, he also said he's sharpest before 8 p.m. So, say that the Pentagon at some point picks up an incoming nuke. It's 11 p.m. Who do you call? The First Lady?
He has a team that lets him know of any news that is pertinent and important to the American people. He has someone that is decided, obviously, with his National Security Council on who gets to tell him that news.
So,
what else do we have? At a fundraiser, Biden told donors about how Charlottesville inspired his campaign, and a few minutes later, he told the story again nearly word for word. What's up with that? Oh, now we have to go to X for this one.
Last one. At a fundraiser this week, President Biden told donors about how Charlottesville inspired his campaign, and then according to the pool, a few minutes later, he told the story again nearly word for word. What's up with that?
What I can tell you is, and I'm going to be careful not to talk about, because this was a campaign event for this upcoming campaign, obviously in 2024, so I'm not going to speak to that, put that out there for the Hatch Act. What I can speak to is, look, the president was making very clear why he decided to run in 2019. He made it very clear as to what he saw in this country and what was going on. And he got 81 million votes, a historic amount of votes from Americans across the country who believed that this was a president who can help protect our democracy, get our economy back on track, and could be a leader and the adult in the room. And so that's what you saw. I'm not going to speak to comments that were made during a campaign event, but I can certainly speak to why the president is president today and why he decided to take on this job. And it is important for him to continue to deliver for the American people, and that's what he's going to do.
So, and that's just a couple examples of people who are not telling everybody about this. And I do think that they knew. I saw this headline as I was organizing stuff here, and honestly, as soon as I saw it, the first thing that came out of my mouth, and I said it out loud, even though I was alone in the room, was, okay, you have my attention. I saved it. I want to be surprised with the rest of you. Also from the Daily Wire, former Kamala aide says Biden-her interview audio is good for Democrats. From Virginia Kruta. Oh, and there's video. Ashley Etienne, once a former aide to Vice President Harris, said on Sunday she believed the release of audio from former President Biden's interview with then Special Counsel Robert Hur would ultimately help Democrats and could even be good for Biden. The audio, which was released on Friday, painted a picture of that reflected Hur's assessment that Biden was an elderly man who was at best forgetful. The consensus across much of the media was that it only reinforced claims that Biden had been diminished long ago, before the White House or even other Democrats and members of the press admitted it. I contend that he was a moron when he was in Obama's administration. But according to NTN, who appeared on Meet the Depressed on Sunday, the release of the audio was far less damaging than it could have been, primarily because it would be out of the news cycle long before any of the Democrats who defended Biden's cognitive acuity and overall fitness had to run for re-election. Which, of course, and I pointed that out as we went, or as we talked about it before. Of course they got it out of the news cycle in a hurry because now we get to talk about Biden's cancer instead. So let's listen. You have my attention? Now utilize it.
Ashley, I have to turn to you and turn the conversation to former President Biden, all of the revelations this week. I do want to read something that a Biden spokesperson said about that audio that we heard from his conversation with special counsel Hur. He said the audio does nothing but confirm what is already public. Take us inside your conversations. How much does this moment hurt Democrats?
I mean, I agree with the spokesperson. I don't think it really has any impact, but this is how I see it. The real question is why release this tape now? And it's clear to me that President Trump released the tape because he's trying to distract from his disastrous, unprecedented, disastrous first 100 days. I mean, we've all been talking about that at the table today. So to me, that's what's at play. Imagine a situation where you're so desperate, so underwater on every issue that you play your best card in the first 6 months of an administration. So the way I see this is good for Joe Biden. It's good for the Democratic Party because we can dispense with this now and not closer to the midterm elections.
You think it's good for...
Yeah. That is some next level cope right there. Kind of want to put this in the Discord. And by kinda, I mean absolutely. So you know what that means? That means I'm going to do that. Let's do that now. Just because, again, I think that's... I bet you I can inspire Midget B to yell next level cope. In fact, let's even edit this so the video plays. Alright, we'll watch for alerts later on. Alright, I got one more that I want to talk about here. Because one of Jill Biden's aides is now coming out and saying that the admin was allergic to transparency while in the White House. Also a part of the new book highlighting some of the problems that Biden had. We're going to watch a little bit of this. I want to see if the Daily Wire clip is shorter. Because they've got a clip as well. Yep. We'll do this one instead, though. Allergic to transparency. Jill Biden's former press secretary slams the Biden admin for its lack of openness. Let's listen.
If you only knew how hard it was. I mean, this was a group in the White House who were allergic to transparency. And I go back to and I'm just talking about like just in the East Wing. I mean, the very first day walking into the White House, the usher was fired and I couldn't get reporters straight answers because nobody would give me straight answers.
It's kind of telling, of course, that this is somebody who was supposed to be in the tank for everybody involved and just is coming out and saying this. Let's read a little bit of this one here. Michael LaRosa, who once worked as former First Lady Jill Biden's press secretary, went scorched earth on his ex-employer during a recent Fox News appearance, saying that Biden and his family were allergic to transparency. LaRosa joined Fox and Friends Weekend on Sunday to discuss the recently released audio of Biden's interview with then Special Counsel Hur, and he commented specifically on how difficult it was for even those working for the Bidens in the White House like himself to get a straight answer out of anybody. Host Rachel Campos Duffy asked LaRosa about the Hur interview audio, specifically questioning him on how things might have changed if the Bidens had been unsuccessful in keeping the audio out of the public square even after the transcripts were released. If you only knew how hard it was, I mean, this was the group in the White House who were allergic to transparency, and I go back to I'm just talking about just in the East Wing. I mean, the very first day walking into the White House, the usher was fired, and I couldn't get reporters straight answers because nobody could give me straight answers. It was not intuitive around them. It was not their style to be transparent about anything. They took days and months to be deliberative. Well, and again, part of that is because everything that went through there had to be completely focus tested to make sure that it fit the public narrative. And I'm talking about the small things, about when the dog bites occurred, about the wedding and the grandkids. And they got caught lying to the press about press coverage because they were so scared to be transparent about anything. LaRosa said he eventually got to the point where he had to consider the possibility that if they were unwilling to be even the slightest bit transparent on the little things, my God, what would happen if there were big things, which I think that there were. My working theory, again, is always going to be the same thing. It's always going to be the same. It was well known that there was something that was going to be coming out about Hunter Biden and the Ukraine. And the Ukraine thing was getting ready to go back and pop off. So the idea was to get somebody in who could A, easily be controlled, but B, could have also been forced to testify under oath, under threat of perjury. Had he not been in the executive office, he'd been out of the vice presidency for long enough that his executive immunity was gone. So they can sit him in there and not have to answer any questions about anything because, oh, it's top secret, it's classified. It's executive immunity. And then they hide him and the vice president for 4 years, and then if he dies in office, we have the first female president, or he goes back and, well, they hold on to him as long as they can through primary season. Until all the primaries are over, and tell anybody that's running against Biden in the primary that, or tell the people, rather, that anybody who's running against Biden is a Russian agent and a Russian stooge. And then go and put their preferred choice, because I still remember in 2020, the news was all about Kamala. And that she was going to go run for president. And they had her on 24/7 with her interview for the Supreme Court nomination of Justice Kavanaugh. She was front and center the entire time. Because that's who they wanted. They wanted her on the camera. They wanted her everywhere. She got demolished in the primary, so the next step was to go back and get her in without a primary. That's been my working theory since basically everyone coalesced behind Biden. And it probably doesn't help that doesn't help to dissuade that theory. That he got in right after the Burisma call was released. All right. Let's talk about the big, beautiful bill. Clip from Hannity today. House to vote on President Trump's big, beautiful bill. Let's listen. Come on.
Preparing for a likely vote on President Donald Trump's one big, beautiful bill, likely sometime in the early morning of tomorrow. Here now at the very latest. Well, the Hitchhiker's Guide to All Things Crazy Procedural D.C. Our very own Chad Pergram is with us. Chad, I think it'll get over the finish line, but not without a little bit of angst and, well, let's arm twisting maybe, persuasion perhaps, whatever term you like.
Yeah, they certainly had that today. There's a reason why they had this summit at the White House today between the president, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and also members of the Freedom Caucus, is because they just didn't have the votes. They seem to be trending in that direction right now. And what has happened, Sean, in the past 45 minutes here is that we have what's called a manager's amendment. These are changes to the bill that Mike Johnson has crafted to try to coax some of those skeptical members to vote yes. I'm just going to read through a couple of the changes right now here. The Medicaid work requirement that will start now in December 2026. The green energy tax credit, some of them will end in 2028. And also there is now an incentive to harness some of the expansion of Medicaid into these non-Medicaid states. These are some of the changes that these conservatives asked for in order to be a yes on this bill. We won't know until tomorrow. We think that that vote probably comes late tomorrow morning, maybe midday. They might debate this in the very early hours of Thursday morning here. And really it comes down to calling the vote and pressuring members to say, look, we've jawboned this for weeks. It's time to vote. And if members still hold out, or if they are no on the board, then Mike Johnson can come to them and say, look, you're really going to stand in the way of President Trump's agenda. And if push comes to shove, they can then, maybe get the president on the horn and force them to vote yes, forcing the issue, because he says he needs to get this done by Memorial Day. So that's what's happening right here. And that's why this debate right now in the House Rules Committee on these changes is so important. I remember when I was a kid, I would come downstairs on Christmas morning and I would get most of the gifts that I wanted. What I needed, Sean, was a manager's amendment, and that's what Mike Johnson has done today, because that's what will get these members who have been skeptical to yes. Back to you.
All right, Chad, great reporting as always. All right, the U.S. House of Representatives is now...
Shut up. Shut up. So, the big, beautiful bill, there's problems. Because there is a lot of spending that goes along with this. Like, a lot. And it was one of the things that we pointed out at the top of the show when we talked about finance. And it's, again, it's one of the problems that I had with Trump. And the reason I released the video at the beginning, and then a second video when I decided to pull the lever begrudgingly for Trump, was, you know, Pam and I talked about this when we first met. Like, people would look at me and say, Republican, MAGA, Trump, blah, blah, blah. What? I mean, it's part of the reason that my pinned X is what it is at this point. Because if you think that I'm MAGA, pay me $10. If you really think that that's what I am. But A, you're wrong, and B, it'll get you to stop sitting back and thinking this when it starts costing you money. I was not planning on voting at all this past time through, because I looked at the spending that came out. Around midterms time, I said, okay, well, we can come back and do this if you follow through on your promise. No more spending. Cut the spending off. No more omnibus bills. I knew we had to do some spending throughout everything, but no more big omnibus bills. No more 1,000 pages. Nobody has time to read. Last minute, government's going to run out of money crap. I was told in 2018 that there was never going to be, I'm going to sign this one, and it's going to be it. There's not going to be another one. Everything's going to be single issue, line item. And then we had like 3 more omnibuses even before we got to the pandemic spending. And then now, I look at there's been one omnibus, which was a short-term stopgap, and then this monstrosity. And I look at this, I'm like, I didn't vote for this. This is not what I wanted to see. I wanted to see a reasonable spending cut. I wanted to see more tax cuts, obviously, but still a reasonable spending cut coming out of this. It doesn't have to be huge. I know that the lobbyists sit out there with their hands out, waiting to get paid. But didn't we just go through and cut trillions of dollars from the government in paychecks and wasteful spending and pause in funding and everything else? Why are we putting forward a bill right now, a big, beautiful bill, that will add $20 trillion to the national debt over 10 years if we just cut all this spending? And I will admit, I have not read this bill, and I've not even gone to 4chan, who, while they scare me, is still a place where I know that we can go and have a bunch of weaponized autism go through this bill and pull it out and point it out line by line, show where everything is going and where the big problems are in the spending. I do, but it doesn't appear that we're making any attempt to cut the spending at this point. With all that being said, why are they doing it? I understand why they're doing it. I understand why they're doing it because it's one of the few times that they can get the, quote, pet projects that they have, that President Trump had planned for his first year in office, his first couple years in office. It's the only way that they can get all of them through at one time on a simple majority vote in both chambers. They're using their one budget reconciliation a year to go back and push this through. And then they don't have to break the filibuster in order to get through everything in the Senate, which they don't have the votes to do. This is a guaranteed DOA by every single Democrat out there because, hey, it might actually work. But again, in order to do so, they have to go back and hide pork upon pork upon pork upon pork in the hidden little crevices of the bill to make sure that they get other people on board. There are a lot of good things in this bill that I like. It's just the fact that it has to be out and tied with all the rest of this crap. From the Hill, White House GOP leaders bet Trump bill is too big to fail. Good God, where have I heard that before? Wasn't that what we heard right before everything kind of just, the bottom fell out of everything? You know when the last time you heard too big to fail was, right? You remember that? Huh. Long says weaponize the tism. Alright, from the Hill. Speaker Mike Johnson and the White House are betting the bill full of President Trump's priorities is so big and so beautiful. The big, beautiful bill. I gotta find out. Did they give me an HR number on this one? I gotta see if that's what it's called in the short title. Hold on. At this point in politics, nothing would surprise me. Oh my God, it is. It is! Guys, they actually called it the Big Beautiful Bill. Congress.gov, One Big Beautiful Bill Act, 119th Congress, 2025 to 2026. I'm done, you guys. I can't do this anymore. We are living in clown world right now. I thought that the Democrats would have to be in control for us to be living in this level of clown world. We are living in clown world right now. Let's pop this thing open. HR 1, One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And yes, as you can see by where the cursor is moving over on the side, if you're watching on the video platform, this thing is huge. HR 1, report number 119-106, to provide for reconciliation pursuant to Title II of H-Con Res 14. A bill to provide for reconciliation pursuant to Title II of H-Res 14 being enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. Section 1, short title. This act may be cited as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. They actually called it that. Look at how much, this is just a table of contents. Look at how much is poured into this. Look at all, this is still table of contents. This, from here, all the way back up to here, is just the table of contents. And did we take time to read this? They actually called it that. House GOP leaders are charging ahead with the plans to vote on the legislation officially titled the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. As soon as Wednesday night, even as hardline conservatives continue to withhold support over concerns about deficit spending. A posture that could result in an embarrassing setback if holdouts sink the package. The White House is pushing for the House to hold a vote on the legislation Wednesday evening, the admin official told The Hill. The long impasse has forced House Rules Committee members into a purgatorial cycle. They've been debating the package for more than 15 hours, but they can't wrap up because there's no final bill to vote on as lawmakers haggle over last-minute tweaks. The strategy, to be sure, is a gamble. A failed vote would deal a blow to Johnson and Trump and risks sapping the win from their sails, heading into the long Memorial Day recess, which, by the way, they did pass it by one vote. So it is headed to the Senate right now. I still can't believe it's called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. That is an actual real thing that happened in politics. The Speaker and a smattering of other Republican leaders nonetheless look ready to ante up, repeating the same message throughout the week: failure is not an option. We have to get this done, Johnson said on Tuesday. I told President Trump on the campaign trail that I believed he could be the most consequential president in the modern era, and arguably maybe one of the most in all of U.S. history, maybe the top 2 or 3. I think this is the way that we deliver that. The conservative holdouts have voiced a series of demands as a condition of winning their support, namely speeding up the elimination of green energy tax credits, and Democrats enacted in 2022, and further limiting the size and scope of Medicaid spending. Adding to the pressure for the hardliners is that blue state moderates on the other ideological end of the conference secured a deal on raising the state and local tax deduction cap on Tuesday, marking a major breakthrough for leaders to secure support for the bill, making it an expensive policy that conservatives say should offset with more cuts. Now, one of the things for me is I am in favor of pushing that cap through the ceiling. Because yes, you should 100% be able to consider your state and local taxes as a loss of your income before you go and file your income with the federal government. Yes, I know this is going to be every liberal who stumbles upon this or hate watches this particular video pile on saying, tax cut for the rich! I mean, you don't want to hear what my ultimate tax cut for the rich is, because that would be a tax cut on everybody and bring the tax rate back down to 0. While the White House and GOP lawmakers have agreed to move up from the start date for new Medicaid work requirements for able-bodied adults from 2029 to December of 2026, hardliners are eyeing even bigger reforms that may make other Republicans balk, such as further limiting the provider tax mechanism that uses states to extract more federal matching dollars. The changes will be laid out in a manager's amendment, which lawmakers are waiting for Johnson to release. But by packaging the controversial proposals with an enormous list of provisions supported by the conservatives, including broad tax cuts, enhanced oil production, and tougher immigration rules, Trump and GOP leaders are all but daring the budget hardliners to vote against the massive package over concerns with a sliver of it. Even if the vote fails, it could be a strategic move by identifying those willing to defy the president to leadership and to the public as leaders work to lock in support. I'm going to be completely honest, I don't think this passes the Senate. I think it loses 51 to 49. Because the Senate margin isn't that big. On Tuesday, Trump warned that he would deem any GOP lawmaker who opposed the package a fool, suggesting he would back primary opponents in those cases. And on Wednesday, the White House issued a formal statement amplifying the warning. So they're going to go the David Hogg approach. President Trump is committed to keeping his promises, and a failure to pass this bill would be the ultimate betrayal, the White House wrote in a statement of administration policy. So, and they passed it. It is done. I still can't believe that it's actually called the Big Beautiful Bill. This is real life, folks. I've been making jokes about the Federal Apprentice for over a decade now. We're actually living the Federal Apprentice at this point. From the Daily Wire, Trump's one big beautiful bill clears hurdle in second attempt of key votes. From Daniel Chayton. In a second attempt late Sunday night, President Trump one big beautiful bill prevailed in a critical committee vote after House GOP leadership managed to placate a handful of Republican deficit hawks who held out in the first go-round. I don't know why, but I got the Garth Brooks song Rodeo stuck in my head with that. The wide in his knuckle, the gold in his buckle, he'll win the next go-round. The House Budget Committee advanced the package set in a 17-16 vote along party lines, while 4 conservative defectors from last time voted present. It appears negotiations over the past couple days were productive. Speaker Johnson, Big Johnson, told reporters shortly before the Sunday vote that talks have been great and the minor modifications were made over the weekend. The exact details were not immediately known. By the way, the big beautiful bill is now in the Discord in general. Long says the Lord himself only asks for the faithful for a maximum of 10% of our income to support his church and his work. And even then, only if we can afford to do so. Where the hell does the frickin' government get the idea they have the justification to ask for 33% of my earnings? Well, my friend, that is a completely different religion right there. And our Lord and Savior Barack Obama needs your support. So, that is through its procedural vote. Let's grab one from the Associated Press. Then I got like 3 back-to-back from The Wire. Trump's beautiful bill spans more than 1,000 pages. Here's what's inside of it. Again, if you'd prefer, and I myself have not read this one, it is in the Discord and general chat. Take a copy. It's good bathroom reading. You could probably finish it in one poop. And then if you had the paper copy, you could use it to wipe your butt.
I know, pal, that's not it.
But I want my own ass! I want my own ass!
I know!
Yeah, that's probably what you can do with this bill. House Republicans are getting closer to passing Trump's tax breaks, spending cuts, and beefed up border security as Speaker Johnson attempts to pass the package over unified Democratic opposition by Memorial Day. House committees have labored for months on the legislation, which exceeds 1,000 pages and is titled the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, a nod to Trump himself. GOP divisions have narrowed and continue as fiscal conservatives worry the bill doesn't do enough to curb Medicaid spending, because of course that's the first place that they go to. Nobody's going to go touch anything foreign, because why would they? Defense spending, God forbid we ever touch that. While Republicans from competitive swing districts have expressed concerns about the prospect of their constituents losing access to health coverage, food assistance, and constituents. Democrats say they'll fight what House Party Leader Hakeem Jeffries calls this extreme and toxic bill. Here's a look of what the Associated Press wants you to see in this package so far. Republicans look to make permanent the individual income and estate tax cuts passed in Trump's first term in 2017, plus enact promises made on the 2024 campaign trail to not tax tips, overtime, and interest on some auto loans. Which, I mean, those things I am in favor of, to be able to go back and use that as a deduction. To partially offset the lost revenue, Republicans propose repealing or phasing out more quickly the clean energy tax credits passed during Joe Biden's presidency, helping to bring down the overall cost of the tax portion to about just $3.8 trillion. The bill includes a temporary boost to the standard deduction, a $1,000 increase for individuals, bringing it to $16,000 for individual filers, and a $2,000 boost for joints, bringing it to $32,000. The deduction reduces the amount of income that's actually subject to income tax. There's also a temporary $500 increase to the child tax credit, bringing it to $2,500 for 25 through 28, then return it to $2,000 and will increase to account for inflation. You know, instead of going through and making it permanent, like it should be, they're just, this is the thing that they're, and I know this is why they're going to do this as well, because then they can go back and put this as a poison pill in the next big budget reconciliation. Sneaky. One of the thorniest issues in negotiations have been how much to raise the state and local tax deduction, now capped at $10,000. That's been a priority of New York lawmakers. A tentative agreement has been reached to increase the SALT cap to $40,000 for incomes up to $500,000, with the cap phasing downward for those with higher incomes. Because of course it does. Because all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Several of the provisions Trump promised in the campaign would be temporary, lasting roughly through his term in office. Nobody should even be surprised by that at this point. The tax breaks for tips, overtime, and car loan interest expire at the end of 2028. What a shock. That's already the campaign message coming up. Go back, vote for my predecessor. Otherwise, those tax-free installments that you have on your tips and on your interest, that all goes away. It's all gone, no more. Unless you vote for me. I believe that's called blackmail, by the way. I'm not gonna lie. If I ran for Congress, I would have to run as a Republican. There's no way that I would be able to fit in with the current crop of Democrats. Wouldn't really fit in with Republicans either, but because I don't care about keeping people who like to take it in the butt from marrying each other. And you can't elbow me enough to force me to care about it. But I would likely have to vote Republican. I'd be one of the people on the Trump crap list. Because I couldn't vote for this thing. There's also the case for a $4,000 increase to the standard deduction for seniors. Yeah, anytime I see a sunset clause in something like a tax break, I can't vote for that. There's no way. 0. Among the various business tax provisions, small businesses, including partnerships and S-corps, will be able to subtract 23% of their qualified business income from their taxes. The deduction has been at 20%, which that in and of itself is a good spur to the business environment. That I can support, so long as it doesn't have a sunset clause. Businesses will temporarily be allowed to fully expense domestic research and development costs in the year that they occur, and the cost of machinery, equipment, and other qualifying assets, which again should be a thing because that's a loss technically. I don't know why that's not already a thing. See, these are good things right here, but the tax break on tips, overtime, and car loan with a sunset clause, they're all good things on paper, but it's that damn sunset clause, you know? Parents and older Americans will face work requirements for food assistance. House Republicans would reduce spending on food aid, what is known as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, by about $267 billion over 10 years. States would shoulder 5% of benefit costs, beginning in fiscal 2028, and 75% of the admin costs. Currently, states pay none of the benefit and half the admin costs. Republicans are also expanding the work requirement to receive food aid under current law. Able-bodied adults without dependents must fulfill work requirements until they are 54, and that would change under the bill to age 64. Also, some parents currently exempt from work requirements until their children are 18. That would change, so only those caring for a dependent under the age of 7 are exempt. That, and again, while I'm in favor of bringing some of that down, because, I mean, you get to a certain point and your kids can work, especially if they are able-bodied themselves. I don't think I would bring it down to 7. I think 13 would be where I could bring it down, because that's when your kids can start getting a work permit and start bringing in an income. I think 7 is a road too far. A focal point of the package is the nearly $700 billion in reduced spending with the Medicaid program, according to the CBO. To be eligible for Medicaid, there would be a new community engagement requirements of at least 80 hours per month of work, education, or service for able-bodied adults without dependents. The new requirement would not kick in until January 1st of 2029, after Trump leaves office. So, basically, here's the mess. I'm leaving. Peace out. People would have to verify their eligibility for the program twice a year rather than just once. Republicans looking to generate savings with the new work requirements, but Democrats warn that millions of Americans will lose coverage, because that's what they always go to. An estimate from the nonpartisan CBO said the proposals would reduce the number of people with health care by at least 7.6 million from the Medicaid changes and possibly more, with other changes from the ACA. No taxes on gun silencers, no money for Planned Parenthood, and more. Republicans are also using the package to reward allies and disadvantage political foes. Because of course they are. The package would eliminate a $200 tax on suppressors that's existed since Congress passed the NFA in 1934. The elimination of the tax is supported by the NRA. The group Giffords, which works to reduce gun violence, and suppressors, I'm not going to say the other S word, by the way, because that's not what it is, make it more difficult to recognize the sound of gunfire and locate the source of gunshots, impairing the ability of law enforcement to respond to active shooters. In what universe? I have used a suppressor, by the way, and it's not like the movies where you just hear It's not like the video games where you just hear your gunfire is still loud with a suppressor, but you can do it without ear protection while you're at the range. So no, it's not a silencer. And no, it doesn't make it difficult to recognize the sound of gunfire. You've been watching too many Bond movies. Republicans are also looking to prohibit Medicaid funds from going to Planned Parenthood, which provides abortion care. Democrats say defunding the organization would make it harder for millions of patients to get cancer screenings, pap tests, and birth control. Again, thorny issue on that, because I get where they're coming from off of this. I do. The problem that I have with funding Planned Parenthood is not the... It's not the the scare tactic that Democrats use every time. But cancer and pap tests and birth control and everything else. It's the fact that all the money goes into one pool. I'm not even opposed to them going off and using whatever they get off of the Medicaid for the abortion side of it. But it's like the union. It's the same kind of thing. All the money goes into a big pool that's not earmarked for anything else, and then all of a sudden you get a large amount of money for political action committees and donations to various Democrat causes. I'm in support of there being a low-cost option for cancer screenings, PAP, and birth control. I'm begrudgingly okay with using it for the A word, because there are situations where it's medically necessary. There are fewer than the statistics would come out and tell you, but there are situations where it's there. But it's just like when you pay your union dues and you have no say in where that money goes in the union after the fact, including what goes and gets donated through the AFL-CIO to go to various Democrat campaigns. Honestly, I would love to, and I think this would actually be a good compromise on this. Take the prohibition from Medicaid funds going to Planned Parenthood and put instead a prohibition from Planned Parenthood donating to Democrat causes. In fact, that's anybody. If the NRA gets a taxpayer subsidy from something, or I'm sorry, a subsidy from a bill like this, and I don't know that they do, I'm just using that as an example to bring it both directions. We'll use the NRA as an example. If Congress decides to give a portion of funding for training, exercises, etc. to the NRA, training, subsidizing, safekeeping, things like that, that'd be things that the government would be interested in giving to the NRA for. And I don't know if they do that, but that's just examples I can come up with off the top of my head. If they get those donations, or if they get those subsidies from the government or direct payments from the government, then the NRA can no longer donate to political causes. It's against the law at that point. Planned Parenthood gets their subsidies to go back and do cancer screenings, PAP, birth control, and yes, the A word. Then they can't make political donations anymore. That's the compromise I'm willing to go for on this. Now, mind you, it'll still get filtered through their members, and the members still can, because it's an independent organization and they're independent people, but the organization itself can no longer donate to Democrat causes. MAGA kids' $1,000 savings accounts. In this case, it means money accounts for growth and advancement, not Make America Great Again. For parents or guardians who open new MAGA accounts for their children, the federal government will contribute $1,000 for babies born between January 1st of 2024 and December 31st of 2028. Families could add $5,000 a year with the account holders unable to take distributions before age 18. Then they could access up to 50% of the money to pay for higher education, training, and first-time home purchases at age 30. Account holders have access to the full balance of the account for any purpose. Not a fan of this. Not a fan of the government getting into banking for any purpose whatsoever. Funding for the mass deportation operation is in there. More money for the Pentagon and the Golden Dome, because of course we have to go spend exorbitant amounts of money on defense spending, because this is the United States and Raytheon needs to pay money back to their shareholders in the government. Tax on university endowments and overhaul of student loans. A wholesale revamping of the student loan program is key to the legislation, providing $330 billion in budget cuts and savings. The proposal would replace all existing student loan repayment plans with just two. a standard option with monthly payments spread out over 10 to 25 years, and a repayment assistance plan that's generally less generous than those it would replace. Among the other changes, the bill would repeal Biden-era regulations that made it easier for borrowers to get loans canceled if their colleges defrauded them or closed suddenly. There would be a tax increase up to 21% on some university endowments. Again, the dumbest possible way that you could revamp student loans. Which do desperately need a revamp, but that's the dumbest possible way you could do it. More drilling and mining on public lands. Again, I'm more of an idea of let's reduce the amount of public land. To generate revenue, one section would allow increased leasing of public lands for drilling, mining, and logging, while clearing the path for more development by speeding up government approvals. Royalty rates paid by companies to extract oil, gas, and coal would be cut, reversing Biden's attempts to curb fossil fuels to help address climate change. In a last-minute ad, Republicans also included a provision authorizing sales of hundreds of thousands of acres of public lands in Nevada and Utah, prompting outrage from Democrats and environmentalists. Yeah, it's going to step on a lot of toes because, if it gets done right and parceled out right, that is going to allow for a large amount of new housing and a plummet in housing costs. Which in a way I don't want to see because of what I spent on my place. But that's what AP wants you to know about what's in this bill. Some of it I like, most of it I hate. Tom Homan, Border Czar, hails big beautiful bill. We need more money to deport illegals. From Mary Margaret Olahan. Tom Homan is celebrating the passage of Trump's big beautiful reconciliation bill, arguing in an interview with the Daily Wire that the bill is pivotal to protecting the southern border and empowering border authorities to do their jobs. We've made a lot of progress on the border, but we want to keep it permanent, he told the Wire outside the White House Wednesday ahead of the bill's passage. We need the money not just for the border, but the interior enforcement operations. Money for the border is going to help continue building the border wall. Every place that the border barrier has been built, illegal immigration went down, illegal drug flow went down, so we got to put more border wall up. The House passed the bill in a 215 to 214 vote early Thursday morning, a significant victory for the president after back-to-back all-night sessions in the Rules Committee and on the House floor. So, they got a bunch of money out of this. Also from the Wire, House Republicans reveal final changes to one big beautiful bill. From Daniel Chayton. In a post on X, Wall Street Journal reporter Olivia Beavers highlighted what the measure looks like with the last-minute changes. So the SALT deal stays, Medicaid work requirements moved up to December 2026. So end of next year. About 18 months for you to figure out what's going on with that. Incentives for non-expansion states, faster phase-out of energy tax credits for wind, solar, and battery storage in 28 with some exceptions. Changes to federal pension, ditching the federal requirements that firearm suppressors must be registered. Posts on social media from journalists also pointed out that several pages in the manager's amendment deal with renaming MAGA accounts, which are featured in a proposal to create tax-preferred savings accounts for children with $1,000 in seed money, to Trump accounts. Boo! So that's what's changed in this. It has passed. The budget chief, Trump's budget chief, responds to fiscal hawk heartburn over big beautiful bill from Daniel Chayton. Which we have the video straight from the Ben Shapiro show. Trump's one big beautiful bill offers a historic level of mandatory savings. Office of Management and Budget Russell Vought declared on Wednesday when pressed on a response to the legislation's skeptics among conservative lawmakers. Vaughn spoke on the legislation making its way through Congress through the reconciliation process during an appearance on the Ben Shapiro Show. Let's watch.
So let's talk about this bill. Obviously, there's been a lot of heartburn, particularly by fiscal hawks, about this bill. Suggestion that the bill doesn't do enough to cut the national deficit, that it adds to the deficit or adds to the debt. What's the truth about that?
Well, I think, look, this is the most historic level of mandatory savings that we've had ever, $1.6 trillion. And just to give people a little bit of context, for 30 years, we've had virtually no efforts to cut mandatory savings, which are the things that are kind of hardwired into permanent law, welfare benefits, things like Medicaid. And we've had nothing of consequence since the 1997 balanced budget agreement, which included the work requirements with a Republican Congress and Bill Clinton. This bill essentially doubles that with $1.6 trillion, begins to have sizable savings to get illegal immigrants off of Medicaid, to have a work requirement in Medicaid, to take those reforms from 1997 and apply them to more of the federal program to get people back into the labor force. So it does sizable things at the same time as being, in addition to the economic growth that we think will come from this, because you know, my view as the budget guy, you can't cut spending if you don't have a growing economy. And so the last thing you want to do is not preserve these tax cuts, get them extended. That is really just what current law is. There's a unique thing in budget land where you allow for programs to be permanent, but tax relief sunsets. So all that we're doing is extending what is essentially current law and then adding $1.6 trillion in mandatory savings. We think it's actually historic and something this town hasn't even begun to approach. And we're working with members to be able to tell that story.
And I get that, and they're going to say that there's some sort of saving to that. But, I mean, I was promised a balanced budget back in 2017. So I'd like to see some of that here because, I mean, our money is becoming monopoly money faster than I think you guys realize at this point. All right, we'll skip the one on hardliners because it's already passed. Productive meeting. Holdouts, changes reveal. We've said all that. What is SALT? I explained a little bit of that, of course, and why that is. I've got way too many articles on this. They say the jobs and tax credits that could disappear if the big beautiful House GOP bill passes. I do want to touch a little bit on this one. This is an op-ed from Ellen Nilsson, and it's under CNN Climate because, well, that's where they're focusing on. House Republicans are proposing to gut energy savings and clean energy tax credits in President Trump's big, beautiful tax bill, funds that are creating thousands of jobs in GOP states and saving homeowners monies on their bills. It's all in the chopping block. The House GOP is moving closer to the final vote, which already happened. If Congress passes the tax bill as it stands, it could cost the U.S. more than 830,000 jobs that would otherwise be created in the coming years. I don't know where it is that you think that any of this is guaranteed, by the way, but apparently to them it is a guarantee. The think tank Energy Innovation found the impacted jobs are mostly in construction and manufacturing, building factories and components for EVs, wind turbines, solar panels, batteries, and other clean energy products, the vast majority of which are in GOP states and districts. A lot of this stuff is made overseas, so I don't know where you're getting GOP districts from. It also threatens an eye-popping amount of investment from companies that piggybacked on the passage of the Clean Energy Bill known as the Inflation Production Act. We're talking about an awful lot of money, approaching $1 trillion in private sector investment that's either been made or has been planned, that's at risk, said Robbie Orbis, Energy Innovation Senior Director of Modeling and Analysis. The threatened funds are in the same places that jobs are at risk. Nearly 80% of the investment sparked by the law is in Republican areas, according to the data from the Rhodium Group and the Mass Institute of Technology. Bottom line, that's what the new tax bill, essentially a repeal of the clean energy provisions in the 2022 Inflation Production Act, according to an independent analysis from two nonpartisan think tanks. So, I respect your analysis. I have not read the bill myself. But what I will say is this, is if this was actually in all of this, the Associated Press would have told us about it, because they're pretty anti-Republican in every way. We read about the SNAP changes. Winners and losers. We all lose. Alright, let's move on off of the big beautiful bill. I ranted about that for probably a good 45 minutes. It's my thing. I'm a fiscal guy. Let's talk about 8647 for just a bit. Former FBI Director Jim Comey under investigation for posing as a potential threat to Trump's life. In case you missed it, the Calvin Coolidge Project, with a tweet that says, former FBI Director James Comey posted 8647 on its Instagram page today. For those who don't know, according to Castle's Dictionary of Slang, to 86 also means to kill, murder, to execute judicially. So there has been a big amount of debate on this one, on what it is that 8647 meant. And when Comey got a visit from the Secret Service and got questioned, he just said, oh, to remove. Because 86 can move that. I just mean to remove him from office. Under most circumstances, I don't think that's actually the case. That's not actually the case. From NPC News, Nnamdi Egwonwu. I probably butchered that last name. The Department of Homeland Security and Secret Service are investigating a social media post by Jim Comey that several U.S. officials interpreted as calling for the assassination of President Trump. Homeland Security Kristi Noem said on Thursday. In a now-deleted post on Instagram, Comey shared a photo of what he described as a shell formation on the beach that formed the numbers 8647. The post was swiftly condemned by admin officials, Republican lawmakers, Trump allies, who said it blatantly targeted Trump, the 46th President of the United States. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, 86 can informally mean to get rid of. Disgraced former FBI Director James Comey just called for the assassination of President Trump, Noem wrote on X. DHS and Secret Service are investigating this threat and will respond appropriately. A spokesperson for the Secret Service said the agency vigorously investigates anything that can be taken as a potential threat against our protectees. We are aware of social media posts by Director Comey, and we take rhetoric like this very seriously. Beyond that, we do not comment on protective intelligence matters, Anthony Guglielmi, the agency's chief of communications, said in a statement. Taylor Budowich, White House Deputy Chief of Staff, accused Comey of putting out what can be clearly interpreted as a hit on the sitting President of the United States. This is deeply concerning to all of us and is being taken seriously, Budowich wrote on X. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. Do you know why I don't want to spend a lot of time on this? Because this is a distraction. That's why. Jim Comey is one of the masters of putting out something that's going to cause outrage while something else is going on behind the scenes. Hell, he did this at the end of the 2016 campaign when he casually talked about having the charges, having the goods, and then just dropping the charges for funsies, basically, against Hillary Clinton. The right decision, obviously, because we don't use the levers of government to go after our political enemies, and we'll be talking about this in the bottom of the show with things that I hate, definitely. But meanwhile, we sit here and we see shuffling going around the DNC, last minute pushes to go out and get the ballots harvested at the time in states where things were harvested, and attempts to go put things into play to make sure that Hillary got into the White House, which was an ultimate failure again, of course. When you do something like this at the very, very end of a campaign, it is a distraction. And he could go back and get everybody outraged on both sides. So, it's a sleight of hand thing. Your right hand is sitting out here with the cards in it, flashing in front of your eyes, while the left hand is over here, out of your shot, then doing something that you can't see because you're paying attention to what's happening in this hand in front of you. And it was another one of those things that got the Biden-her story out of the news. And I'm sure the DNC went back and ran a couple other things in behind the scenes. And there were also a bunch of changes that came in from the big, beautiful bill that nobody noticed. All of this was, and it got people outraged for 2 or 3 days, covered the news cycle, even got independent commentators talking about it, was a distraction. And it worked very well. I have to take my headphones off to this, but hats off to you, James Comey. You understood the assignment, even if I hate the assignment, but you did what was assigned to you very well. And very effectively, even if I think it was a terrible thing for you to do. So yes, we've got, articles on this, Daily Wire saying it got Kash Patel's attention, Jim Comey detailing about this. I mean, we've got a full 3 days news cycle over something that doesn't even matter. The Secret Service can go back and have a conversation. Comey can say, oh, I just meant get rid of, I just meant impeach and remove, I just meant this, I just meant that. And that's all that people talk about for 2 days. Again, while our friends in the left and the right sit here and put together a $20 trillion over 10 years bill that's going to continue to spend us back into oblivion. So, alright. I think we're done with the news. We could sit back and talk about Target. We could talk about Zelensky, but basically he just went to Turkey and turned back around. So the Ukraine war goes on. The Mexican ship is a absolute 100% nothing burger. It was a little bit funny. And the only other thing I have is Bruce Springsteen and Neil Young saying that they hate Donald Trump. That's not news. That's the name of the newspaper. Let's do some things I like, some things that I hate, and get out of here for the day. Well, mostly it's going to be things that I hate. But first, the rules of acquisition. Every week, as we finish out the show, we look at the Ferengi rules of acquisition, which represent the commandments of the Ferengi religion, even though there are well more than 10. As we've seen with this last week, we read the 99th rule of acquisition, trust is the biggest liability of all, which has a lot of focus in a lot of different ways, and can be interpreted in a lot of different ways as well. We move on to one that moves off of this here. Now, of course, a reminder that Roddenberry was an avowed communist and a very, very big enemy of capitalism. So a lot of these were made to mock capitalism, but they wound up being very, very capitalistic and positive if they were interpreted right. And the 100th rule of acquisition does just that. From The Ascendants, which is a DS9 novel. When it's good for business, tell the truth. When it's good for business, I mean, you do a lot of things just because they're good for business. And yes, tell the truth is absolutely one of them. Now, I've been an advocate of you should be as honest as you possibly can in advertising. In a private sale of an automobile, in the sale of what you're putting out on your shelves, if you're a retailer, what's in your drinks, if you're a bartender or a restaurateur, manufacturing magnates, anything else, you should always be as honest as you possibly can. But sometimes in sales, and we all know this, We don't outright lie, but we sometimes have to withhold parts of the truth. You don't tell them that the technician camped on your truck for 10 hours to do a 2-hour job. You just say that we were waiting on something or other to come through. That kind of thing. But when it is good for business, do tell the truth. And it should be standard practice that it's good for business all the time, of course. This, you can very much tell, especially given the fact that it's from a novel, was one of them that was mocking capitalism. But there can be some truth in it, as with a lot of the stuff that we see. A lot of it can be moved into the truthful column as we go. Alright, I have got a bunch of things that I hate, and yes, I said as I promised, we'll finish out with one thing that I like. Alright, I wanted to talk about this one for just a second because of the headline. Now, I watched some of the video. This is a 24-minute interview podcast talking about the millions saved by the COVID vaccine and the studies torn to shreds. The study was torn to shreds on its face, you guys. That's one of the hardest things off of this is it's impossible to prove a negative. If a person dies, if a person passes away, and the person passes away from the COVID-19, then we can take that person, we can do testing, we can do an autopsy, and pretty much if it's requested, demanded, etc., figure out exactly how this person died with fairly 97 to 98% certainty of what it was that took the person's life if the person died. I argued with this, and we argued with this for a long time, that if a person survives, how do we go back and prove what it was that caused the person to survive? Because it might have been a big surge of antibodies that the person naturally produced. It might be strength, it might be good rest, or a change in diet. I don't think it's possible to sit and prove that the vaccine saved lives. I'm not going to talk about the M word, obviously, or the S word in any of this, because we're on YouTube, and things that you can prove in the other direction, but what I will say is no, it's impossible to prove a negative. This study was dead on its face. You can sit and speculate, you can sit back and say, oh yeah, all these millions of lives because all these people caught the jabby jab, and they didn't die. Well, there's really no way of you proving that they wouldn't have died without getting the jabby jab. It's an impossible study to go for. You can't prove a negative. Alright, other things that I hate. The artificial meat argument, which I've been a fairly big proponent of letting the free market make the own decision off of this. It's not real, says right-wingers in red states are banning lab-grown meat because it will be used as a cudgel against them in the future. There's no faith that lab-grown meat will be on an even playing field in the markets. It will be used for decoolization if the opportunity ever presents itself. Now, I don't necessarily believe that's true, but I've been an advocate from the beginning. As soon as we started hearing about lab-grown meat, I don't care if it comes to market, as long as it is clearly labeled that it is lab-grown. If you're not sitting here trying to hide it in the ribeye package and saying, this is totally a cow piece, 100%, just eat the lab-grown meat, eat the bugs, you moron. Because if you clearly label it, the market's going to decide, and especially if you can come back and make it cheaper. Now, and I had a big diatribe on this one here, because I do think that for those of us who choose to use it, yes, it will be much more inexpensive to get a fairly, from what I understand, accurate cut of red meat, full of the same aminos and iron and everything else that the side cut of a steak would have for you. And again, this is what I understand from the process, a fraction of the cost. So people with food scarcity issues or limited income, etc., can have the opportunity to get something that'll keep them healthier than the highly processed animal hot dogs. But they'll still have, and as G pointed out in the Discord, that he himself would trust the animal hot dog, as processed as it is and as filler laden as it is, over the lab-grown meat. And I pointed out back again, yes, but you would still have the choice. Now, one of the other issues that I have with lab-grown meat is the fact that, I mean, we have a history of groups like the FDA telling us to eat 11 servings of carbs a day and a butt ton of other stuff that we've found to be not healthy for us, to keep us fat, lazy, diabetic, and in pain all the time, because then the donors in Big Pharma get more money as they go. And I do have to wonder what's going to wind up in these lab-grown steaks and what hormones will be in there and what chemicals and fortified nutrients that are going to keep us fat, lazy, diabetic, and in pain all the time. I, for one, I would probably try the lab-grown meat, but I probably would never get it again after that. Just to see if it's actually accurate to taste and texture or not. But I, for one, would rather get the meat from the cow, eat the cow in the tried and true way that kept our species and society going for thousands, if not millions, of years. But I'm not against the idea of the option being there. I mean, look at the Beyond Burgers. Those got marketed out at the free market, and a bunch of people tried them for the first time, and some of them even liked them. But the free market spoke, and I mean, you don't hear about a lot of that stuff anymore. It's there and it's available, and people do buy it. I know, like, Burger King still has a Beyond Whopper. McDonald's, I believe, still has some Beyond Beef to it. And people do buy it, but overwhelmingly they go for the beef option. And Bong brings up a good point off of this too. Speaking as someone who took an F ton of human-focused biology classes in college, I can't think of anything that could convince me that that stuff within my lifetime, that's fair. There's a lot more to it than amino acids and basic building blocks. Again, that's all fair. But I know you, Vong, and you're not in a situation where you're in food scarcity either. Even when I was at my poorest, I myself wouldn't have bought the lab-grown meat, even if it was within my budget and price range to do so. But I would like the idea that the option was there for me to do so if it really got down to that point. It's not the idea of actually me trying to advocate for people to buy it. It's for me to have, it's for other people to have the option, and again, let the market decide. J6 stuff, that was debunked. I don't know why I kept that on there. From Scott Jennings, they finally admitted it on live TV. The persecution of Trump was an organized effort by the Democrat Party resistance. While it bears real, the system was weaponized against him. I've not pre-listened to this, so I don't know what's in this particular video clip. I wanted to be surprised with the rest of you.
Are mad. Why the base is mad at some of the leaders in Washington is not because they're not left enough. It's because, Chuck Schumer came out with no strategy, no forewarning, and just said, we're going to fold on the CR. I mean, I think he could have done a better job of explaining what the strategy was and what we're going to do, but there wasn't anything like that. I think Democrats are learning, and I'm going to agree with you, that Democrats cannot only be the party of resistance. We cannot, we resisted so hard between 2017 and 2024. We impeached the guy, we prosecuted him, convicted him of 34 felony counts, and guess what? He still got elected. So I don't know how much harder we can resist right now.
Are you admitting that, that the case against Trump in New York was part of the organized Democratic Party resistance?
It was a Democratic prosecutor, and at the time, I thought it was unwise. I went on Fox News and said
there were Democrats who said this at the time.
There were a lot.
Just to be clear, everybody who now touts the 34 felonies, take it from Liz. This was not a real case. This was a plot to upend the presidential campaign, which backfired.
I just think it was a boneheaded move by Alvin Bragg, but it's not his first or last one. So.
This is why we invite Liz, because she's a plain-spoken New York Paul who can really tell it straightforward in a straightforward.
I mean, we all knew that was the case anyway. And I've always said, I mean, if you look hard enough, they say, there's some different books out there that say that we all commit, unknowingly, 3 felonies a day. So anybody who would go back and just look and do a little bit of digging can put anybody in jail that they want, based on the way that our laws are. Something to keep in mind if you decide to go back and run for an office against the blessing of the powers that be. That they have the goods and the stuff. This one, with my background in automotives, I think would surprise a lot of people. But it is something that I do want to touch on and talk about with this one. Real Clear Energy says why Ohio has a say in California's gas car ban, from Josh Williams. In the coming days, the U.S. Senate will vote on whether to overturn a reckless decision by the EPA that grants California the power to ban the sale of new gas-powered cars and trucks. While I trust Senators Moreno and Husted will stand up for Ohio workers and families, not every lawmaker fully understands what's at stake or why states like ours deserve a say in California's misguided agenda. Here's why it matters. California's actions don't just impact its own citizens. California and states allowed to follow its car ban represent 35% of the U.S. auto market. So the ripple effect reaches every corner of the country. Ohioans are already fighting back. Our legislature passed a bill to block California-style bans here, but if federal regulators allow one state to dictate national policy, the damage will be felt far beyond its borders. Nowhere will the pain be more acute than in Ohio. We are the industrial engine of America, from auto plants in Toledo to fuel refineries across the state. Our economy is built on manufacturing the vehicles and fuels that keep this country moving. These aren't faceless operations. They're where our friends, families, and neighbors earn their living. California's ban isn't just a threat to environmental policy, it's a direct attack on American jobs, including thousands right here in Ohio. And let's be clear, the cars we build and the fuel we refine doesn't stop at our borders. We support the national supply chain, so when California and its minion states decide to outlaw gas-powered vehicles, they're not just banning what they don't want. They're banning what we produce, what consumers still overwhelmingly choose, and what the majority of Americans still need. That means fewer buyers for our products, fewer orders for our factories, fewer paychecks for our workers. It also means higher prices for families. The supply of internal combustion vehicles dried up while demand stays high, and it will, then the price of gas car will skyrocket. Consumers in Ohio may still be allowed to buy them, but many won't be able to afford them. A state 2,000 miles away shouldn't get to make that decision for us. First off, this is completely backwards in this. Now, this would usually be in the thing that I like, because I would come back and say, oh yeah, of course, make sure the gas car is still king. And here's the issue that I have with this. Now, number one, I don't think this is going to go into effect. I think that somebody's going to step in and stop this before California gets it pushed off and done. Because I mean, car culture in and of itself is huge in California. It still is. Race culture, car culture, these are huge parts of the California life because it's temperate, it's mostly dry all year round, it's great for racing, it's great for engine building, and it's great for driving around. in your classic car, your new muscle car, etc. year round. Something you can't really do here in Wisconsin. So I think the citizens are going to, I think it's going to go into effect. It's going to last a year, and the people are going to say, hey, what the H? And it's going to be gone again. I do think that's going to be the actual possibility with us, but as Ohio being able to dictate it, I don't believe that's the case, and I don't think there should be a federal backlash to this. Even if it is protectionist, let California make their own bed. And on the other end of it, no, the supply's not going to dry up. The problem with this is the orders are going to dry up, yes, but that means that there's going to be that much less demand for these new cars around the country, bringing new car costs down, because you still have the ability to pump out that many cars, and without any buyers, then, you know, the dealerships are going to start making moves to get these things sold. Bringing the used car market back down, flooding the market with used cars, bringing our car prices back to where they go. Meanwhile, California goes back and sits and punishes its citizens. I'm not a fan of a gas car ban by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's moronic, and, well, realistically, California doesn't have the electric grid to support it. But let them put their money where their mouth is. That's the big part of the American experiment, is that local governments get to decide what's best for their citizens without affecting people in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Ohio, New York. Let them do it. Let's see what their citizens feel about it. I'm curious. I have a bunch of popcorn set aside to watch this show happen. And I want to eat my popcorn. Alright, what else do I have? Let's do just a couple more, then we'll do something I like and we'll head out of here. Hillary Clinton, back in the news, of course. Hillary Clinton says GOP women are handmaidens to the patriarchy because, well, we can't read a different book. Except for two. From Virginia Kruta. Hillary Clinton's latest dig at Republican women made it clear she hasn't learned anything from the massive wave of backlash that hit her after Basket of Deplorables. Clinton sat down with Maggie Hoover for an interview in early May, and Hoover used the opportunity to ask the twice-failed Democratic presidential candidate what advice she might have for the first female president of the United States. Let's listen.
What advice do you have for the first female president of the United States?
Well, first of all, don't be a handmaiden to the patriarchy, which kind of eliminates every woman on the other side of the aisle, except for very few. Lisa Murkowski.
Liz Cheney.
Yeah, there's a few. Look, first we have to get there, and it is, you know, obviously so much harder than it should be. So, you know, if a woman runs who I think would be a good president, as I thought Kamala Harris would be, and as I knew I would be, I will support that woman.
Yeah, she hasn't learned anything at this point. And sometimes I look at this kind of stuff and think, is she just trying to sandbag the DNC for rejecting her? And furthermore, this is the one that blows my mind, and I can't figure out why these people haven't autopsied their own party and said, hey, this is why we keep failing. Look, over and over again, they do this numerous times off of this. You're trying to appeal to people my age who are in our prime voting bloc, who many of whom, even if we've changed sides and gone to the Republican Party or gone independent as I have, were standing there together, arm in arm, protesting against the Iraq war. I know I remained anti-war, and I know a lot of the people my age who left the Democrat Party remained anti-war as they went. So why, do I ask, dare I ask, are you suddenly so cozy with a Cheney? That's like the biggest poison pill you could do to the Democrat Party right now. Hey, let's support a Cheney, the daughter of the evil person who perpetrated the Iraq war. They don't learn. Trump has called for major investigation into Kamala over unlawful celebrity endorsements because, well, he hasn't learned anything. Why would he? I said at the beginning, if we start going and using the government to go after our political enemies who have tainted their own political careers at this point, then we're no better than Democrats. So, hey, let's not do this. We have bigger things to take care of right now than using the arms of government. Alright, a couple other things that I hate. If you follow my ex, you already know where my frustration is at this point, because I definitely went out and added half-price books on this one. So, for means, I don't really want to say out loud at this point. I happened upon about a dozen copies of this book, The American Drug Scene, from James Inciardi and Karen McElrath, which, by the way, if you're interested or want to come back and help out and want a little piece of something like this, and what is honestly for a textbook an actual really good read, it's different readings in a global context of our drug scene, and it's very well done. I have them on my eBay front page. I can get the link from my eBay. 10 of you can have a copy of this book, and I can still have one. But I thought to myself, okay, well, I'll go to Half Price Books, and I'll go drop these off. They sell them for this much. I can probably get 30 to 40 bucks a pop for them. That'd be a reasonable amount of overhead off of this, and everything will be taken care of. It'll all be good. It'll all be fine. I don't know if the woman at the front counter, if that's actually Half Price Books corporate's decision off of that, or if it's just because she saw a guy with a bunch of textbooks come in and a Snap-on hat and said, oh, this guy must be some ignorant redneck who's just trying to get rid of books. Now, mind you, again, we're sitting here looking at the page right now. If you're on the audio platform, you see this. For $79.99 a pop, they're getting these for. And then I had various other textbooks in there. The Mythology of Crime and Criminal Justice is another one that I had a number of copies of. There is a newer version of that book, so I wasn't concerned about getting a bunch of cash off of that, but still getting it out there for the people who wanted or needed it. I didn't think that I was going to get much off of that one, but this one, thought there's no way. There's 10 copies. I think there's 12 copies of this book in there. I'll get like $100. It'll be good. It'll cover the gas that it took to get up here to bring this to Half Price Books, and I'll have a little bit of money left over until I get paid again, etc., etc., etc. Brought that book up. Lady says to me, okay, well, your offer will be ready shortly, so we'll page you over the intercom when it's ready. And I walked around the store. I found a Fallout tarot card deck that I'd never seen before. Looked at some video games, paged through a couple of different books that I liked. I get called back up, thinking to myself, okay, maybe she'll give me $100, $200, something like that. Your offer is $17.34. With the amount of books that was in there, that was 50 cents per book. And I literally came out and I said, no, we're not doing this. By the way, I gotta say goodbye to our Instagram crowd because the cell phone battery is dying. So we'll put that down, we'll get that plugged in. $17.34 for a box of books that included 10 to 12 of this title. Now, honestly, and I don't know where their overhead lies. I would think that a place like that would be able to get by on 100% overhead. That would have netted me $400, but I wasn't even going in expecting to get that kind of cash off of it. I thought that $100 would still be a little bit low, but it wouldn't be an insulting price. What they did there was insulting. That is a 16,000% upcharge over what they give for these books. So, again, and they're not even accounting for shipping off of this, because you pay for the shipping on top of it too. And they only have one left. They could have had 10 to 12 to get that price back out of. I looked at that and I said, no, we're taking that away. I'm not leaving that for that. Again, if you want a copy of this one here, I got 10 of them through the eBay store, or reach out to me personally. Offer me a fair amount and I'll send it to you. If you offer me a fair amount, I'll cover the shipping for it and I'll send it to you. I don't need 10. Alright, a couple more. Well, one more thing I hate, and then some things that I like. This one here, we have the anti-boomer posting here. Boomers be like, there's no housing problem. Youngsters just want to get too big of a house. If you get a small cottage like I did when I was 21, you gotta work for it. And then, of course, for those of you listening to the audio platform, the person lists what appears to be a modest 1,800 square foot house in Franklin, Tennessee for $1.1 million. Now, I don't know if you know anything about Franklin, but if you want to know something about Franklin, go back and ask Tim McGraw or Taylor Swift what they think of Franklin, because that's where they live. This property right here is put up as option because that little 1,800 square foot is going to get bulldozed. And the screenshot here doesn't tell us what the land amount is. They just say what the house square footage is. But just from the looks of it, there's at least a little bit of land off of this. This is going to get bulldozed and redone into a mini mansion. And the guy comes back in and shows other things. And again, this is in Franklin, Tennessee. Modest houses for almost $1 million. That's going to get pushed into the ground, turned into a mini mansion. But you're sitting in, again, one of the richest suburbs of Tennessee. Now, I just bought this house, which is a little bit smaller, for like a fifth of that. And it's a decent house, and there's still some potential to it. I can probably get even a little bit more money back out of it if I do some of the projects that I want for it. But yeah, for the most part, none of these houses, if they're going for that price, are going to stay here. This is for the next country star to go back in and build their dream house on the land of. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to these big places, I mean, even Palm and I were driving around one day and we saw various different places around town with houses similar to mine, possibly in one story being the only difference, ranch style, bungalow, things like that, done in one story style, that are probably going for maybe half again what my house went, because they're in town, they're in the middle of all the amenities and everything else, and it's easier for people to go and use public transit to work, etc. And I know other people are complaining, oh, I don't want to have to go drive 45 minutes to work. I'm not in that boat. It's a further commute than I want to work, but I'm pretty close. So, yeah. I mean, you naturally go and you cherry pick a house in a pricey area. Alright, let's do something I like, and then I'm going to head out of here for the day. I have not talked about this one, and I don't typically do product placement, but I wanted to end you guys on a positive note. And I didn't really have any new movies or TV shows that I'd watched this week, so I wanted to talk about this, though. I had a bottle on my desk. It's empty now, but the Mountain Dew Cabo Citrus flavor that's come out. If you like citrus, give this one a try. This one's for you. I really enjoyed this one a lot. This is almost as good as my favorite, which is Livewire. But the big benefit to this one, if you have it in your region as well, is in most places you can get this in zero sugar, 0 calorie version, which is fantastic for keto because it actually keeps me up under the keto benchmark. Whereas a regular bottle of Mountain Dew, which right now I have that because I'm off of keto, sitting next to me, there's 74 carbs just in this bottle. That's 4 times what I'm allowed on keto just out of a bottle of soda. So they gave you options for this one. If you like it, go back and check it out. And with that, I think it's time for us to come back and head out of here. Throw some outro music up and let's go. You could probably program the outro music to the Stream Deck. But again, it's just going to take some time to sit back and figure out what the Stream Deck is. 3 hours, not so bad. Not as bad as some of them we've done. Including a break because allergies are beating me up right now. But it's time. Let's get the main music off. Let's get the outro music up. And with that, we're out of here. We're done. It's over. I can get on with my day. Thank you so much, everybody who came by and hung out and chatted in my live chat. Kept everything going, kept everything flowing along, and kept the view count up. We had another good one today. So we will see you here next time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. It's going to be a great time. I really hope that we actually have a chance where everything slows down and we don't have a major epic news cycle that takes 3 hours to get through. Because, hey, that seems to be what we always do. But we will see you here next time for that. Take care. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And we will see you then. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar. And this is Contemporary.